What's up, my friends? How you doing tonight? Welcome to the stream. Dads are taking a break this evening, so I'm here to learn more Unity with you. I'm quiet. I do seem to be quiet. What's going on? What's up? Hello? Hello?
Yes, I am
Test,
the Lord.
test.
71 months of Kingdom Hearts torture.
Hey, Clark. Thank you for 71 months. Do I sound okay or no? I mean, I turned it down while I was talking. Nothing should really be different from any other night. Unless somebody chewed a cable. No, I never have, Dino. Oh no. What? Huh. Well, that is not correct. How strange. Um. Just a moment, please, while I try to figure out what the fuck that's about. What copy protected content? It showed my desktop for a second. But there's seriously, I don't even know what to do about this. This is quite strange. No. No. This is some sort of glitcheroony. I guess I'll have to restart my desktop PC and just see if that fixes it, I guess. I don't know. So how are y'all? Right? I do enjoy that it says that right on the thing. Like, definitely don't use HDMI splitters to bypass this. Please. And that, is just, that's cool. Well, it's fine now. I don't know what the hell went wrong there. Sometimes I have found the HDCP stuff goes fucky. Do you want to see my FPS version again real quick?
Yes, I am the Lord.
Woodhop, thank you for 4 years. 4 years. Oh yeah, it was on the hardware. Nope, I didn't mess with it at all. HECP is just a big pile of shit, so I would say that's probably the reason that happened. So for those of you who haven't seen this yet, here's our little FPS version with locked cursor. It didn't fix everything, and I have some wrong math in here. But it does work. I like this part. It is. It is. It is a bit unnerving. It's the red goo. It consumes all. Extremely consumes all. We have done it. So yeah, through a combination of searching up how to do first-person perspective and locking the cursor. So it's actually still using the shoot array to where the cursor is to determine where to shoot. But that was bad, as you saw last time I showed this. But once I locked the cursor, it's technically still shooting at the cursor, but the cursor's locked to the middle of the screen. So that essentially made it work. Until you, like, aim up. And the bullets don't know what to do, so they just kind of emanate from within. Or from without. I think they kind of shoot out of my butt. They're still shooting, but they're just not coming out. And then as I aim lower, they start to go higher and higher and higher. So it's not done correctly, no. Not at all. Right? I thought of that. I thought, well, I won't let it look up and down then, right? That's the answer. But to be honest, it just sort of makes me feel bad. Like trying to get it to be more like less jank by technically making it a lot more jank just makes me feel bad. So I'm not going to continue any further with this. It was just for fun. It is really cool that we can take what was built as a top-down experience and so easily convert it into a first-person experience. I really like that we could do that so easily. It's very cool. But that's enough fucking about. I've already found like janky cheat ways. I can escape the level by stepping on an enemy, stepping on the spawner, shooting a little bit of bullets under my feet, and then I can walk up on the wall and then leave. Goodbye. Oh my god, I fall so fast. I have so much gravity. I'm shooting gravity. They're gone. I don't know where they are. They go fast, though. Yeah. So there you have it. Just wanted to share that with y'all. Alright. we're going to be diving back into Tom's tutorial. We're going to be doing sounds and screen jolt. There was a Unity update today. A tiny little incremental thing, so I'm sure it's fine. We're not doing anything so advanced that it would be affected. I've also already downloaded the sounds that Tom was going to use, so I'm ready to go there. I think the most beneficial thing of trying to do the FPS thing is it emphasized for me the things that I need to do, like to really focus on learning. Well, I've been spotted. Why do I have that weird bug sometimes? It's so strange. The first time I'll shoot one of these lit bullets, it'll do like a full screen flash of color. I don't know why. Seems like a glitch. That happened again.
Yes, I am the Lord.
Go shorts.
Apt Mage, thank you for 35 months. But there are some aspects of game dev that I really need to focus heavily on more than others. So, like learning the Unity interface, I'm absorbing that fine. Writing C# like syntax, not going to be a problem. Understanding the math behind what makes things work in a three-dimensional space, I'm gonna need to have a little bit of a sit-down session with that for a while. Probably multiple sit-down sessions with that. Really get that ingrained in my head, because that's the part where it kind of falls apart for me. And unfortunately, it's a pretty critical part to game programming because of the fact that like everything that you would want to do is based off of understanding that math. Pretty much, positioning things, moving things, all of it is based around understanding that stuff. Yeah, I guess who didn't I don't know if I think I completed Algebra 2, maybe. I don't quite remember. So I did algebra, geometry, and algebra 2. I never did calculus nor trigonometry. So I don't have that stuff in my brain. I don't know if I can get that stuff in my brain. I've been thinking about maybe it'd be worthwhile to find math courses and see if I could. I don't know if it exists out there. Like, I wish there was some place you could go that's not a university, just online courses, and just be like, okay, look, I did algebra 1, geometry, and I think I did algebra 2. I would like to continue from there. I'll redo algebra 2, and then let's do calculus and trigonometry so I can get up to speed. Is that any good, BFA? Or is that just a recognizable name? Because I've heard of it. I don't know if it's like actually a good thing or not. Because the only reason I would be skeptical at all of anything is that there's a lot of shit out there. There's a lot of cons out there. Oh. Anyway, that's not something we have to worry about right now. But I feel like I am going to have to brush up on stuff at some point in the future if I'm really going to want to do things properly. And I do, so.
So, having said last time that
how's Tom
I was
volume?
determined to actually fully finish
Too
something
high,
in an
too
episode,
low?
I did realize right after
Actually, he's
recording
as high as
that,
he can
we
be.
didn't
So
finish
is it
the
too high?
Beams for the railgun. This episode is actually going to be we're starting on feel, and the two most important ingredients for that, in my opinion, are sound and screen shake. we're going to do both of those. For this kind of game, anyway, those are the two most important things. So we're going to get both of those started, at least. Make some good first steps on that front. But we need to do the railgun thing first, because the issue, let me see if everything is in the state that I think it is.
We have an issue.
We've got a railgun here, we fire it, and these lasers just stay around forever, which is unfortunate.
Oh, we did
There's
this.
a couple of
We did
reasons
this,
for
but we
that.
didn't get to
One is, so our railgun B
actually doing
which is a
sound.
profile here. I am going to reload that.
So I'm going to skip ahead here.
And okay, you lost it briefly. Click that. Arguably, that's a slightly backwards way of doing it, isn't it? Because it's freesound.org, and I recommend it. It's just a really nice place where people post, note down. You just should. I believe you should credit everyone on our list. In fact, I'll write it down now. Let's do credits. And that dinging is my phone. Sorry,
Tom,
I tried to silence it.
you linked to 4 sounds in your video description.
Right. So we got that explosion sound. Did we? Did we download it? Yes. This is.
Maybe he doesn't use one of them. I don't know.
Be making copies of them. But let's download all the ones we want. So we want an explosion sound. We've done that. We've checked there's the right license, and I'm going to write down that username. Would it make sense to do it here? No, I'm going to do it separately. In fact, let's just put it under credits.
Unfortunately, he literally cannot be quiet or louder than he
All these
is.
are, so it's a exciting journey for me to find out.
He's already at
Gunshots and explosions.
maximum volume.
Okay, so this is like a nice. I like this one because it's really short and.
Or actually, I may be able to.
It's quite quiet, not just in volume, but it just doesn't sound like a huge deal.
How's that?
Oh yeah, attribution license. This one we legally have to credit them. We're going to anyway. This is actually going to be our Uzi sound, I think. Uzi sound, Johan Dieck. What is next? My philosophy of sound design is that the worst crime you can commit is having a sound that is too loud for the effect that it has. And by loud, I mean not just volume, but kind of punchiness and aggressiveness. It's okay if your sound is not as loud as the effect. Like if something's quiet but it has a huge effect, that doesn't feel bad. It sometimes feels weird. It's a distinctive feeling, but it can be good.
It bamboozles
but it's
everybody,
terrible
Zach.
if a gun is like really powerful sounding, but then doesn't have a big effect, that feels really bad. My two examples of this are the silence pistol in Deus Ex 1. Makes not a good noise. It's just this kind of very pathetic noise, but it's quite powerful, especially once it's like accurate. And that feels okay. It's weird, but it feels okay. You can get into it. It's got its own vibe. Versus the standard pistol from Half-Life 1 is a gun that has a very loud, scrapey, scratchy noise. It's a really kind of nasty sound, and it doesn't do much damage. And I hate the feel of that weapon. I don't know why I gave you that lecture. I think I was waiting for this page to load. This is the railgun sound. This is from. I mean, they've chosen the username deleted user 1941-307. It's a username. We'll credit it. Whatever you want, man.
I mean, maybe they deleted it. I have no idea.
And then one more, I think. I seem to have two more here, but maybe one of them is one I didn't use. Oh yeah, we don't do this one. I do like.
Okay.
This is someone who's
There is
recorded
one that he
them
doesn't
firing
use.
a 45, and I do like some of these sounds, but we'd have to edit it to get this out, so it's simpler for our purposes if we find ones that are just straightforward. Mishovath.
That's so echoey.
A shotgun sound, which I like. Now that they're all downloaded,
This will
the
be
way
fun.
that we import them, I'm going to select the ones without the 1 in the title, but these are the 4 sounds we just downloaded. I'm just going to right-click and copy, and then I'm going to find our project folder, no XP, the assets folder, and I just paste them in there. You can also do it by dragging it into Unity, into this project folder here, but if you just put it in a folder and explore it,
Don't worry, everybody. I made a folder called
all of our
sounds.
weapons are going to have a sound associated with them now. So we want to edit the...
I'm sure he organizes his stuff eventually.
let's edit the weapon prefab first, which is this shiny lozenge. And the way you play a sound is you add a component called audio source. I know it was already there, but I'm going to type it because you'll have to type it. And then we will slot something into this audio clip field here. I'm not going to do it now because this is the general prefab that applies to all of them. It doesn't really make sense to give them all the same sound.
Right.
But, I want to uncheck play on awake. Play on awake means as soon as this thing is created, it'll play the sound. We don't want to do that with a gun. But we do want to open up weapon behavior, the script. And how will we do it? We'll define a public variable, a public audio source. And I'm just going to call it audio source.
It's important to me, trust me.
And in our start event, we will say audio source equals get component audio source. So we just look for an audio source on our same game object. And then when we fire, right here, we'll just do audio source dot play. Play with brackets, pretty self-explanatory. Audio source.
Sorry, he got away from me a little bit.
So we just look for an audio source on our same game object. And then when we fire, right here, we'll just do audio source dot play. Play with brackets, pretty self-explanatory. It's going to play whatever sound we slotted into it. So that's all the things we need to do to the prefab. Now if we go back into our scene, any minute now, I guess let's do the railgun one first, because we put that right near where we spawn. Now that I click on the railgun, I see the audio source down here, and I can click this little target next to the audio clip, and that's nice because it'll bring up a filtered list of, like, that's got to be a sound, so I'm only going to show you sounds. And where's our railgun? It's right there. Let's just click play and just check that works. Yes, it does. That's quite, I'm going to turn it down a bit.
Which one?
Oops. Yeah, and that, to me, that immediately feels way better.
What one did you do? Oh, deleted user? Okay. Okay, yeah, actually it said railgun. I'm a fool. A simpleton. A moron. Okay. Hello, excuse me. Did I do the wrong thing? Probably. No. Audio clip. Does it? Ah. Thank you. Holy Christ. Okay. Wow. Oh. All right. Well, it is working.
So, Uzi, let's give that one the... What was that? That was a short gunshot, wasn't it?
So
Something like
loud,
for Uzi.
Tom. Volume. Let's go. Let's try like a
You're ready for bits.
0.3,
Just shout it.
huh? Zaris, thank you for the biddies. Why is that still as loud as God? This isn't changing anything? Maybe I didn't save. I feel like it would still take... Nope. Maybe I'm just going to turn this all the way off, just see if it does anything at all. That's infuriating. That's so obnoxious. So it's 0 or 1 basically when it comes to the volume. Is that what you're telling me? What the fucking fuck? Now, what? So, wait, does the whole bar not matter until you get down to like 0.00? Because I have it at 0.001 right now, and now it is having an effect. We get rid of 1 0 here, and we'll see. Oh, this seems tolerable. It is a lot smaller than 0.1, but 0.1 is a lot smaller than 1. And we were getting no appreciable volume decrease. Can you guys even hear this right now, or is it too quiet to hear now? You can hear it? Okay. All right. Let's carefully go ahead with the others. Oh, boy. We were going to do Uzi. Next.
And shotgun. Link that up to the shotgun. The explosion is going to be, we're going to do it a slightly different way, so I won't do that just yet. I'll just get all the weapons and then
What about the
show
rifle?
them sounding different. There's the railgun. Oh, that's the rifle. I haven't set a sound for that yet. This is the Uzi. It's got a kind of rattly feel to it. And then this is the shotgun.
Zero one. 0.01. That really does add a lot, having some sounds, huh? Instantly, it feels so much more like a real thing. The audio latency seems a bit bad. All right, let's continue.
Feels quite heavy. Yeah, I like all those in practice. Rifle, I'm gonna disable the rifle for now. I don't want to delete it necessarily because we haven't made it into a prefab of its own. It's just a variant of it's just a modified instance of the weapon prefab. We might want it later, but right now it feels kind of redundant, doesn't it? Because we've got the railgun now as our single shot high damage thing, and you know I don't have to find a sound for it, frankly.
I knew it.
Okay,
I
so
knew it.
sounds for weapons. That's pretty easy. Sounds for the explosions. So we have a problem with that because where is our explosion?
Oh, good
This
point.
thing, we can
Bert.
add an audio source to this.
You're
and
right.
give it a sound.
You're
in fact, we wouldn't even have
100%
to write any
right.
code. We can just tell the audio source to play when it starts. But the problem is that our explosion only lasts for, in fact, we can see it right here in the inspector, seconds to exist 0.2. So it'll vanish from existence before the sound has finished playing. We could have it stick around until the sound has finished playing, but I tried that and there's a problem, which is our explosion just kills things all the time. All the time it exists, it's killing everything it touches. And so if we make it last longer, we've changed the gameplay just for the sake of a sound effect. And yes, we can get around that. We can have it turn its own collider off. We can have it shrink itself, all those kinds of things. But we're changing the functionality of the thing just to support a sound. Really, it's not solving a fundamental problem, which is there's no reason that the explosion object needs to continue to exist for us to keep hearing the sound fading out. That's not how life works. Like, you don't need, an object doesn't need to continue to exist for you to hear the sound that it made destroying itself. Sounds can stick around and echo and stuff. And in fact, the explosion sound we have, most of the duration of it is the sort of aftermath of the sound. It's if I say echo, you probably think of the wrong thing, but it kind of is echo
here we
or
go.
reverb or whatever. If you ever heard a sound played in an acoustically deadened room, you will know how incredibly brief sounds truly are. I don't know why I'm going to do a huge digression about that. I'm just trying to justify the fact that I think the sound should be its own object. Like, the explosion should create a sound object. The sound object sticks around until it's done playing.
Tom, are you
Explosion object can
hiring?
last
I
for as
wanna
long or
work
as short
with
as the
you.
explosion object needs to last to do its gameplay job. The way we do sounds in Tactical Breach Wizards, the main game we're working on, is that every sound pretty much is its own entity. Like, when we want a sound, we just tell a sound manager to create a sound at that location. We don't actually have players and bullets and explosions all with their own little speakers attached to them, because it's just too much of a hassle to manage the fact that the thing is can only continue making a sound while it still exists. So let's create a new game object. We're just going to go into our scene. I guess I'm going to right click just at the bottom of the hierarchy and say create empty. I'll call it sound object. No, I'm not going to call it that. I'm going to call it explosion sound, because this thing we're creating will only be for the explosion. And we will give it an audio source, and we'll assign it the short explosion. And yeah, let's get that set up and working as soon as possible. So explosion behavior is this code here. What we'll do is we'll give this a slot for a game object, public game object. I'm just going to put sound, I think. And then as soon as we're created, let's do inst.
Okay. Explosion behavior. Okay. Game object sound.
Instantiate sound, and we want to instantiate it at our position. Yeah, and at our rotation, although it couldn't matter less what rotation the sound is. The position does matter because that's where the sound's coming from. We do want it to sound like it's coming from where we exist. And if we were a million miles off screen, the player wouldn't hear it, which is good. So after I've done that, I'm going to open up the explosion prefab. We should find it now has a slot for a sound.
That's my material. Here we go. It does have a slot.
That's actually not a good name. Sorry, I'm going to rename it before I do anything with it. If I hit Control R.
I'm just kidding.
Let me rename it. I'm going to call it sound object because we want to distinguish between this is a game object that plays a sound. It isn't the sound clip itself. We couldn't actually make a mistake along those lines because it won't let us put a sound in there. We have to put an object in there, but we might as well keep our names as clear as possible. If I go to assets here, it should be easy to find. No, it's not, because I forgot a step. After we made the explosion sound, just drag it into the project folder because we want it to be a prefab. We don't actually want one in the scene right now. We wanted to create a prefab. I just forgot that step. So back in the explosion prefab, when we click the little target next to sound object and assets, we can see a nice list of all the things we could put in this slot, and explosion sound is the one we want. I think this will work. There's one more step we want to do just to be clean and tidy about it.
Right. Explosion sound here. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, we hear that explosion. Hang on, I need a quieter weapon because I'm not 100% sure I did it. Yeah, there you go. You definitely hear that explosion. And there's a lot of them, you hear it a lot. I'm going to fire it up again because I want to show you the problem we're about to fix. The problem we're about to fix is that in our hierarchy now, we've got a lot of explosion sounds.
They're not cleaning themselves
and
up.
They're only going to get more and more and more. So those objects, they finished playing, but they're sticking around. We didn't tell them to ever destroy themselves. So we actually need this explosion sound. Let's add a component. We're going to write a new script for this. Really simple script. I'm just going to call it one shot sound. A sound that plays once. And all that script is going to do we'll do it the same way we did for the weapon, where we have a audio source. This time, rather than setting that, no, we're doing it the same way. Sorry, I was thinking we did something different with the other thing, but we didn't. We're just going to do get component audio source. I think last time I made the variable public. It doesn't need to be public. It doesn't matter if it is, but there's no reason to do it. So we have a reference to audio source, and all we want to know is if audio source. No, not spelled like that. Spelled like this. Is playing. I'm being too ambitious with my autocomplete. If audio source is playing, then sorry, those brackets are not needed, are they? Yeah, it's just a variable. And we actually want to check that that's false. If the audio source is no longer playing, then destroy game object. So when we finish playing our sound, destroy the object, clean it up. So we don't need to do anything in the inspector because we use get component to find a reference to the thing. And so I called it explosion sound because this is hard-coded to have the explosion sound in it. If we got to the situation where we had loads of these things that we wanted to create, we'd probably create a system for where there's one generic object and then we... that doesn't work. What did I do wrong? Oh my god, sorry, yeah, that's crazy. I did not mean to do that. Obviously, audio source equals get component audio source. I don't know what the dot was about there.
Huh? Oh.
Let's kill a bunch of stuff to create these, and then we should see all the sounds, and they'll disappear. Cool. That's all working. So we're done on sounds for now. The next thing is screen shake, and for this, I'm actually going to. We probably won't even do screen shake today. We're going to do a thing that I think is more important, which is screen jolt. So it's a subtle distinction, but
Nice.
commonly when people talk about screen shake, they often talk about, you know, when an explosion goes off, you want the screen to rock around. Sure, that's good. You should do that. But nothing like as important as selling impacts. And in the case of a game with guns in it, you want to make the guns feel good. And that is a case of having the screen jolt in a particular direction and then return back to where it was. It's especially true for melee combat, although we're not doing any of that yet. But yeah, you want to make something feel impactful. It should feel like it's jogged the screen, and that, like, you can do screen shake for that, where it just rumbles around in a random direction and it adds something to the effect
You're
of the
welcome.
impact. But it doesn't. It's not specific. It doesn't communicate something about the interaction. And I find the intentional directional jolting of the camera is way more effective. So we're gonna do that first. We'll do screen shake too because it's not too hard to add that.
The
on, but
wrong,
they are different
obviously
things.
not wrong
It's
way
not,
that Tom does.
I've tried in the past to write.
I
one
think
system that
Tom
handles
is
them
doing
both,
it that way just
and,
to
like,
be clear.
my version of a system that handles them both is like only requires like 7 variables and is, you know, a very short script. But it is 2 different systems laid on top of each other, because if you try and do it with one system, it gets more complicated than you'd think. So this episode has one of those
And it
last
works, isn't it?
episode. It's a very big topic, and I'm trying to boil it down to very small, achievable tasks, and that itself is a whole bunch of work that's taken quite a long time to figure out what this episode should be. So we're going to write a new script, but I'm just going to call it. I think I'll call it screen shake because that is the sort of general term for this whole genre of stuff. I'm being pedantic when I say that screen jolt is its own thing. It's not a fundamentally different thing to screen shake. It's just it's kind of a subset of it. So our screen shake script will need a bunch of public variables. One of which will be public float screen. Oh wait, sorry. So we are going to keep track of where the camera normally is. So that'll be the first thing we have a variable for, is a vector3 for normal position. And then another vector we want is jolt vector. So because we are going to make the camera jolt in a direction, when you fire a gun, I want the camera to jolt in the other direction. Or I guess jolt backwards as if it's being kicked by the force of the shot. And we're going to store that as a vector
Nice.
because it matters what direction we go in, right? Anytime that you want something that's not just a linear quantity, not just a single amount, we're going to define a direction, so we need a vector for that. And then we do need a float, public float, for jolt decay factor. So that is remember with the railgun beam, I had this 0.05 thing that's this, it's shaving off 5% every frame. We're going to do something similar with jolt decay. We're going to shave off, X% every frame. And that'll be that figure. So on startup, normal position is wherever we are when the game starts. So for now we have a fixed camera in the game. We'll probably change that later, but we can modify this when we do that. And then let me make I'm going to make the jolt vector public because editing that in the inspector will be useful. And then the camera's transform dot position each frame should be its normal position plus the jolt vector. So if you tell us to jolt the camera back a meter, then our position should be our normal position minus a meter in that direction, or plus a meter in that direction, whatever, plus the vector that represents that movement. But we also want the jolt vector the jolt amount to decay over time. We don't want it to just jolt back and stay there. We want it to gradually return. So jolt vector is going to be multiplied by jolt decay factor. And this is all we need just to show jolt working. Obviously nothing talks to the camera yet, but we'll just do that manually in the inspector. That's why I made the jolt vector public. So when we go back to the inspector, we'll need to set some values here. Jolt decay factor, I'm going to make it 0.7, I think. It's the way we're doing, because we're multiplying the jolt vector by this every frame, our value, the higher it is, the slower jolt decays. So this is really how much jolt is retained each frame to frame. You could phrase it that way, jolt retention factor. I think that's a bit weirder to say, just as long as you understand that the higher it is, the longer the jolt lasts. So if I start the game now, and I set X to 1 here, we see it bump, right?
That was a big bump. Now, what was he doing to make it? Oh. Those numbers don't look great. I have some concerns. uh,
And if I set it 10, it bumps a lot. Set it to 100, it bumps a lot. Set it to 1,000, it bumps a lot. It comes back pretty reliably, within a set amount of time, doesn't it? It's never a long delay, even when I set it thousands of miles out. And that's because we're doing this multiplication.
right. Yeah, he wasn't just dragging it like I was. Cool. Nice. So basically, it just offsets by that amount and always returns to where it was.
Multiplicative effect. And you might, if you remember earlier lessons, the fact that we're doing this update means that it could potentially be different on different people's computers. We could do it in fixed update instead. Should we? It'll be smoother if we do it in update. We could, if we wanted to, we could adjust the factor, but we're not going to do that. Basically, it looks fine. And because it's a cosmetic thing, it doesn't matter that much if it's a bit different for you versus me. It's not going to change the outcome of the game. So that's cool. But now we need something. We want weapons to tell the screen to shake, right? Screen to jolt. And to do that, we are going to want a reference to the camera. So I'm going to open up our references and create a public static screen shake, and just call it screen shake. And when screen shake starts up, we're going to do this in awake. If I didn't already explain, awake happens before start, and awake is usually a good place to set up references, because then they'll all be in place when start runs, and start might want to talk to some things that are references that have already been established. References.screenshake equals this. So we're just saying we're the screenshake thing. And then weapon behavior, right where we had the audio source play, let's also do references screenshake. Misspell references. Any kind of autocomplete would be nice. There we go. Screen shake jolt vector equals transform dot forward. So we're trying to tell the screen to shake or to jolt in backwards, basically. Like we're shooting this way, I want the screen to go that way. So it's our transform forward times, we can do -1. Let's do that. That's going to be a very mild jolt, but we will see it working at least. There you go. A little bit of a bump. Man, it feels so much better with sound than this. So that's all good. The only thing I want to change is that I actually want a public float for kick amount, and that way we can vary it per weapon. So instead of multiplying it by -1, so we multiplied transform forward by -1 to get the backwards vector, but we didn't really care about the amount, we just did it by -1.
He added something in there very quickly. I think it was the kick amount. But we'll see.
Man, it feels so much better with sound than this. So that's all good. The only thing I want to change is that I actually want a public float for kick amount.
Okay.
And that way we can vary it per weapon. So instead of multiplying it by -1, so we multiplied transform forward by -1 to get the backwards vector, but we didn't really care about the amount, we just did it by -1. If I do it by minus kick amount, then it's going backwards, and it's going backwards by that amount. You could, if you like, you can do times -1 times kick amount, but just putting a minus in front of a variable gets you the negative version of it. So after doing that, we need to actually set that. I think for the Uzi, 1 is probably the correct value, kick amount 1, because it's going to be firing all very rapidly. For the railgun, maybe 3. And for the shotgun, that's the one I want most on, I'm going to say 10. So that's going to be a big jolt. Let me, my other computer turned off. So railgun, 3. That feels pretty meaty.
Jesus. This feels like a lot, Tom. Tom, this feels like a big amount. It's almost sickening, honestly. Jesus. Oh, fuck. Oh my god. Oh. Oh. Oh, jeez. Yeah, Nate. The way that we're already doing it. This is too much. It's too much.
Uzi, a steady rattling. Feels good, actually. It doesn't feel like super powerful, but it shouldn't. And a shotgun, yeah, it feels meaty.
Guess it's a matter of taste. That seems like so much to me.
Wait, what's that? What's happening here? I can't fire. What is this weapon I switched to? What is my current weapon? Oh, did I pick up the deactivated rifle? No, I've only got 3 things in my weapons list. Oh, I picked up the Uzi twice. Oh, we still got that bug. Oh, okay, well, we won't fix that this time. There must be something about the Uzi must have 2 colliders or something. So I've got a weird defunct Uzi. So this is good. This is most of what we wanted to do. I just want to do one thing. There's a slight effect you might be noticing with the shotgun. So our screen shake, the jolt is instantaneous. When we ask it to jolt, it jolts immediately. So if we're jolting it 10 meters back, which we actually are with the shotgun, it travels instantaneously, and then there's a forward motion as it recovers. So that's a bit sharp. It can be a little bit jarring. Could be smoother. And
He ran into what? I actually don't know what happened there with that. Because in terms of the bug that we experienced before, that was happening with the shotgun. He discovered that and fixed it. I have no clue why he got 2 Uzis. I mean, like he said, there must be 2 colliders, but there shouldn't be because the Uzi is one object, unlike the shotgun. There aren't 2 colliders to touch. This has already been fixed with a single. Did he not? I mean, what the fix that we did was we removed the collider from the weapon prefab, so there isn't even one. There's a sphere collider on the parent, and is trigger. So unless he didn't do this to all of his weapons. Well, multiple colliders was the issue before. No, you're thinking of a different thing. The issue that we saw before was due to the fact that in the shotgun we copied the cylinder 2 times. And both of those copies, including the original, all had their own independent capsule colliders. So if you stepped into the shotgun the right way, you could touch all 3 of those colliders in one update, and it would add 3 shotguns to your weapon list. If it were 2 colliders on one game object, then yeah, that wouldn't be a problem. No, there weren't three behaviors. The behavior was on the parent. Collider. Hit a weapon with part of your player model. Oh, okay. So if you enter this sphere collider simultaneously, or in other words, with the same on the same exact update, you enter it with your weapon model and your player model, you could pick up the weapon twice. I don't think the weapon collider would trigger it because the weapon collider is a trigger. If triggers pass into each other, it's on here. On trigger enter. Whoop. So we check to see if it's a weapon and that it's not null. So we grab any weapon behavior and check that it's not null. And then we add it to the list. So it's not really checking. No, I suppose the weapons collider never does get disabled. It becomes a child of the player. So therefore, it essentially does become an extension of the player. I actually added that check to my the FPS version of this that I did. I don't remember why. I think because of some other change that I made. But yeah, I mean that is essentially a band-aid. I think I added it here, and it was and weapons contains their weapon, and then not and that. Then go ahead and add it to the list. You murdered an L. Oh, I did. Thank you. Don't know how I did that. Yeah, well, Tom hasn't, so I'm not gonna, because, and there's a simple reason why, but just if I make a change that's different from his stuff, and maybe I forget that I've made this change, and maybe it makes things behave differently in a way that I don't remember because of stuff that he does later in the tutorial. I'm just going to avoid that potential future issue. It probably won't come up, but that's what I'm going to do for now. But I totally understand what you're saying, and I agree. It does right now make sense to just get rid of the weapon collider once it's been picked up, rather than including that in the the amalgam of the player and the weapon that ends up being created by this. Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. To be honest, now that we've had this whole like little diversion, I probably wouldn't forget that I had done this, but I mean, just fuck it. Yeah. I mean, he will probably address it anyway.
I think it's a subtle,
and it'll probably be what we
that I
came
see
up
sometimes.
with.
I don't see it with every shot, but every now and then my brain reads the thing wrong because the backwards motion, because it's instantaneous, it almost doesn't read as motion, and the forward motion does read as motion. And so every now and then my brain thinks, did that go the wrong way? Did it shoot forwards? And it didn't. It shot backwards in a way that my brain missed, and then the forwards motion it caught. And so that's why I think it's worth smoothing this out. And to do that, I'm going to do a public float max move speed. And there's a really nice function that I think I did know about this, but I haven't been using it, and I should do, which is instead of, so this is the line that just sets it. We just say add the jolt vector no matter what it is. Let's be gentler about that. Let's say call the vector 3 hotline and move us towards that. So move towards, as I write it, it pops up and it says, the first thing I want to know is what's your current position, then where are you trying to get to, and how far are you willing to move in a given frame. And so what's our current position? Well, it's transformed opposition. Come on. Where are we going? We're going to normal position plus jolt vector. And how fast are we willing to move? We're willing to go to max move speed times time.delta time. So we need to add that because we want it to be to make it not frame rate dependent. Obviously, some of this stuff is frame rate dependent, but that thing we're not going to make frame rate dependent. So now in our camera, max move speed, let's set it really low at first, and we'll see. So you'll see the effect really strongly. It is still rocking. There is still a slight jolt, but you're just not seeing it because it's so smoothed out. Because this will actually reduce the amount of screen jolt that can happen because it can't jump instantly anymore. It can only move a certain speed, and if it just doesn't get to the full jolt amount, it's already returning by the time it continues to try. So that's very smooth and very dampened. I'm going to go get a shotgun because that's our biggest kicker. Yeah, and that's too slow, isn't it? So if we made it 100, how's that? That's both smooth and quite impactful. I think it's still a little bit slower than I like. I might say, what's 200 feel like? That I really like. That I really like. It's really fast, the back jolt, but it is motion. My brain reads it as motion. It doesn't forget that it's moving. And it just overall feels really nice too. The whole thing just feels much slicker with that, I think. Just that nice limiter on the motion. So that is it for this episode. We will do, like I said, we'll do normal screen shake as well on these explosions. I can't stop getting these things.
That does feel better.
And might do some particle effects for those explosions too. Pause this. Obviously, we need to do credits. Oh yeah, some lights perhaps on some of this stuff. Lighting effects are quite easy in Unity. I was thinking that maybe only some of the enemies should explode. Radical thought, I know, but maybe not all of them should blow up in that. But it's funny because one of the reasons I wrote that down is I was just thinking, God, everything's blowing up in a huge chain reaction. But I don't really
I might
care.
do a
like,
bit
it's
less.
It doesn't feel as good as it should. And I'm an idiot. The reason it didn't feel good is because we hadn't added feel. Literally, we had feel written down on our to-do list, not yet done. And I'm thinking, why doesn't this feel good? Now that it's in there, it does feel good. It's excessive. You don't want to give the player like infinite reward all the time. So we may still, make that change so that not all of them do blow up. But this is starting to feel really nice, I think. So let's finish off feel this time. That's a bit of a bold thing to like finish feel. Obviously, that's.
Excuse me. It feels better with the camera out a bit more, because it feels like it's moving the whole level. And since this is kind of an arcadey thing as it is, not bad. I still think I'll go a bit less than he did, because I think we all agree that it's a lot. Let me try 150. That feels very good. That feels better. This is a lot, I want to say. This is quite a bit. Because it's just constant, you know? Go down to 100. That still feels meaty. Okay, I mean, this feels like action without it being quite as, like, insane. Well, the camera isn't attached to the player. yeah, the jolt amount is controlled by a value on each weapon. Eventually, the camera is going to follow the player around. So it still makes sense that it's on the camera, because whatever the case, the camera is what really is jolting, not the player. This is just an effect to give it some flavor and make. This is the sort of stuff you do to make firing a gun more believable. It's like, brrr, there's sound, there's movement, things are happening. You know, it gives it weight. I like this kind of stuff. It's very cool. I mean, just how different this feels now, you know, compared to what it was. Yeah, game feel. I've heard the juice thing before as well. Cool. Onward!
But we sort of started things like screen shake and the feel of firing the guns, but there's not much on what happens when you actually destroy an enemy. So that's going to be what we will do this time. So last time it was the screen jolt, which is giving you a feeling of kick on the weapons. And this time it will be screen shake on their deaths, and then particle effects for when they blow up, and lighting. So that's kind of where we were with all the weapons. Feel pretty good and somewhat distinct. Something a bit weird about bullets, which we'll look into one day. But yeah, they'll feel different. They'll feel like they're actually firing. But everything else is a bit of a mess in terms of, well, it's not a mess. It's just the explosion chain reaction thing I will change today because it's kind of making combat trivial. And I want death effects for these characters. Let's do screen shake first because that just builds on something we already built. And yeah, and we'll do a basic version of that. Where is screen shake? Here it is. So our screen shake code, like screen shake, we're going to treat differently to screen jolt. They're going to be two separate things. It's always tempting because they're both involved moving the camera over a period of time. It's always tempting. Is there some universal system we can do to combine them? I don't really think so. Because fundamentally, like a screen jolt is our version of it, a very kind of simple version of it, is that someone just gets to set the jolt vector. Like anyone can just set that, and then the screen is instantly offset, and then it moves back to where it was. And that's a single motion in one direction. Screen shake is going to be a period of that random motion. And so we're going to need a few things. One is, so just like we have a jolt decay factor, we're going to have a public float shake decay factor. And just like we have a jolt vector, we're not going to have a vector for screen shake because it's not actually in one direction, it's in all directions. So all we need to know is what's the magnitude. So it won't be a vector 3, it'll be a public float shake amount. And we will do something like, so this code here, I'll give it a comment, and I'll say, set our position to the jolted position. That's what it does right now. And so this bit right here is the jolted position. And so it would be, what I want to do is make that into its own variable. So we're going to add something else on. We're going to add a screen shake factor onto that as well. But this line is getting a bit messy now. It's all these terms all in one row. They're not very well separated. So what I want to do is create, up here where we say vector 3 normal position, I'm also going to say vector 3 desired position. And that will simply be desired position equals normal position plus jolted vector, which is what we had in there. And then I'll just put that variable name in there. So now this code is all exactly the same, it's just a different way of saying it. And we'll call it desired position. This isn't necessarily where we move to, it's where we're trying to move to. We are going to be limited by our max move speed, we're only going to go that far in that direction. And so with jolt, it's very simple because the desired position is this one specific point, and as jolt decays, it'll get closer to where we were. But with shake, the desired position is going to be moving all over the place. And with jolt, we didn't care if we're already in the middle of one jolt and another jolt happens, that's fine, we just do the new jolt. We forget the old jolt, we're just doing a new one now. That's fine because A, the jolt is all coming from your weapons, you're not going to be firing two different weapons in two different directions at once. And B, if you ever were, if we fired like one big shot over here and we're still recovering from that and we fire another big shot over there, it'll look fine if you snap to the new jolt. Because the jolt is, one of its characteristics is instantaneous. But screen shake and jolt are going to be happening on top of each other all the time, because the jolt happens when you shoot and the screen shake happens when something blows up. Those two things are very closely related. I'm no detective, but I'm going to say it's probably your fault. And it would suck if the screen shake overrode the jolt. That would suck, because you want to feel the jolt. The jolt's important.
Well, to be honest, like what he's doing here and what we have so far is not the refined version of this sort of thing. In a real like final type of implementation, like so many games have these kinds of effects. They're just very subtle. And this isn't the same to me as view bobbing in Minecraft or anything. It's just, this is a very rough take on what you would probably have in most video games. It's just a wee bit strong is all. Hey, Dave. Yeah. One thing that I don't know if Tom talked about it. We were talking about maybe. One thing that's like a common one that I've seen is particularly in Nintendo games. Nintendo does that, like they love that frame hold thing. Particularly, I think Zelda games did that a fuck ton, where when you're attacking something, yeah, definitely Zelda games did this just a shit ton, where you'll hit something with your sword, and there will be a flash, and like it'll hold that frame for a couple frames. Yeah, hit stop. I don't know if it has an official name or whatever. Wind Waker did that. Breath of the Wild did that, and they would do it even more for really big hits too. Like if you got a critical, it would hold longer. Which is weird and counterintuitive, right? You would think like, doesn't that impede your ability to engage in combat in a game? But yes and no. Because I want to say, like, while I understand the effect, and I do think that it does lend weight to a strong hit, Nintendo does it so strongly, like they hold it so long that it does feel a bit like you've taken control away from me. it's it's a bit long. But after a while of playing, you tend to start to integrate it into your move timings when you're playing, you know? So, I don't know. It's not a bad effect. But yeah, I don't think that Tom is trying to like make you sick with the way that he's done this. I just think that one, I don't think he's bothered by these values. And two, this very much strikes me as the sort of thing that it would definitely go through a lot of iterations of revision and improvement to where you find like what the magic good amount of like shake and noise and effects are that really give it the proper punch that, you know, that feels satisfying. The problem is that a lot of that kind of thing is subjective, right? It's going to differ from person to person to person. So you have to try to find like what's the average. So at the end of the day, it does really boil down to just being like a matter of taste. So I'm turning it down a lot for your sakes. I think this is pretty tolerable. It gets a bit insane with always being shaking with the Uzi, but it's not too bad. You have to admit, it does give it more gaminess, doesn't it? It adds something. Especially with the railgun, it feels like boom, boom, boom. I almost feel like it should make the player go back, right? Like this, like... All right, onwards.
And ditto, if the jolt overrode the screen shake, then you probably just wouldn't see the screen shake. One of them would just get lost completely. So we're going to combine them. And what we need for that is that we do need a vector. It's just that it's not going to be the same vector. You know, jolt vector is very simple. It's just one thing that decreases over time. This is the part where we decrease it. I'll write that down. Jolt vector decreases. So we want a shake vector, but remember, we've only got the shake amount right now. Now, someone else is going to tell us the shake amount. The initial shake amount will decay over time. But how does that translate into a vector that we can actually apply? Well, I want to write something like vector 3, is that going to complete? Yeah. Shake vector, not vector, equals new vector 3. We're going to create one out of these 3 elements, x, y, z. What are those 3 elements going to be? I want each of those to be a random number. And I want it to be the largest that random number can be is shake amount, and the smallest it can be is negative shake amount. I want it to be in either direction. You can go shake amount in either direction.
Random
any
range.
3 axes. So that means the camera can, if we say 1 meter, then the camera can shake 1 meter left, 1 meter right. It can shake 1 meter up, 1 meter down, and it can even shake 1 meter forwards, 1 meter backwards. Which might seem like a weird thing to do for screen shake, but actually it's good.
Sorry,
because,
slight gong
the
there.
result of that is a slight difference in zoom, and that's reasonable. You know, there's no reason the camera would be prevented from getting closer or further away as it's shaking around in a random fashion. So I can write for each of these things. I can write random.range.
But we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that, Tom. Tom, we're not going to do
we'd
that.
go from minus shake amount to positive shake amount. Does it like that? Yeah, it does like that. And then we just do that 3 times. We can do that, but it's not great to be writing the same code 3 times. And if you wanted to change that later, it would be a pain to change it in 3 different places. So because we're going to, I'll show you what it looks like. It looks like that. That's the line writing. It doesn't even fit on the screen. You can do it that way. It's not a crime or anything. But for convenience, what I want to do is make that its own function because we need it a lot. So I'm just going to write float random. Let's actually call it get random shake amount. And then it's 2 brackets because it's a function. We're not putting anything in the brackets. We're not going to pass anything into it. And it's just going to give us that exact thing. And we need to write return in front of that. This is what we're giving back. We're giving you back this random range. The reason I'm doing this as a function and not a variable, I couldn't declare a variable that's equal to that, but then that random dice roll only happens when you set the variable. It would never happen again. So all of those 3 axes would happen in the same direction, will be offset by the same amount, which we don't want. We want it to be recalculated every time, so it's a function. Functions are things that do things every time you call them. And float is because it's going to return just a number. Because remember, we're going to build a vector out of this. So it's not a vector in itself yet. So now we just do get random shake amount, get random shake amount, get random shake amount. We are still writing something 3 times, but it's a much simpler thing. It's easier to read that, right? The other thing I wanted to mention is I use the word get there specifically because
It indicates
commonly
that
used
you're
in
getting
programming.
something back.
A common convention is
Yes.
when you're writing a function that just exists to go out
Yes!
and get back.
I'm just kidding.
Using the word get is useful,
kidding.
and then sometimes you want to use the word set if the purpose of the function is to set something, to change some data that it doesn't necessarily return to you. If we just write random shake amount, that's probably obvious in this context, but if our code gets more complicated, it might be confused with some function that actually sets the random shake amount or something like that. Yeah, that all looks good to me. So every frame, shake vector gets recalculated as random, as a random shake, a vector that represents random motion in all 3 dimensions by as much as shake amount, but no more. It could be 0, it could be something much less than shake amount. And the next thing to do would be to actually add it onto the desired vector, desired position. You might notice this word is blue and the others are white. That is because I just declared this up here. It's reminding us this is a local variable. If I couldn't refer to it in here, I can't say shake vector here. It doesn't know what I'm talking about. But I can say jolt vector, because that is that was declared up top, so we've got access to that. That's just a useful thing to know if you're ever wondering what these colours mean. I'm just trying to think, is there anything else we need to do here?
Weirdly, my fancy colors don't do
we said
that.
the shake amount would decay, right? So shake amount exactly the same as how it does for jolt. We're going to say shake decay factor. Okay, So the way we're actually going to call this, well, let's go in and set all those variables first, because we declared a bunch of things, we made a bunch of slots for data, but we haven't entered any yet. And that's going to be, we're still on a main camera thing, it's all one script that does this. Shake amount we're not going to set right now. Shake decay factor we will, and I think I'm going to set it something like 0.9. And then I think we can just run our game, and to test whether this is working at all, I can just enter a number into shake amount, and we'll see it happen. Hey, there we go. That's a nice shake. That's a big shake. What's a really big shake? Yeah, that's interesting. So that's 10, this is 100. What's 1,000 like? What's 10,000 like? The results we're seeing are not, this is the nice thing about our smoothing thing. Remember, we smoothed out all this motion by having it, instead of just moving to the desired position, we move towards it by only up to this amount. That means when you put in a crazy screen shake value, it doesn't break the game. It doesn't become impossible to see or play it or anything, but it is noticeably different. Like that 10,000 was pretty crazy, and that's because
Mine's
it's moving
not
as fast as
that
it possibly
crazy.
can. The move amount is huge all the time, and it lasts longer because it takes longer for that big value to decay, and also it can drift further because each step is very big, and it could be in for a long time it's going in random directions. Anyway, long story short, I think that feels good. And actually, this is let's get the idea of values here. Like, what do you think killing a small enemy should feel like? Where am I? Am I dead? I guess I died. So that's probably a 1 is certainly enough for a small enemy. It might even be too much.
Is
What
it?
would 0.5 feel like? Yeah, that feels about right for a small enemy.
10 feels
And
like
two,
nothing.
2's a big explosion. Excuse me. That's a big explosion. What's 3 like? 3 is too much, I think, for killing it. I'm thinking about the guards who have a big explosion and
Am I
the
crazy?
small enemies are a small explosion. I think 3 feels jarring. It's like it's hard to keep track of what's happening while it's going on.
No, he doesn't.
2's significant, but about right, I think. So
Oh, it's...
so I could just add that to explosion.
Wait,
right?
is max
Explosions are
move
prefab
speed
that
involved?
triggers on death. But actually, one of the things we want to do today is create effects. And something we realized last time, or at some point in the past,
Oh, yeah,
it
it
was
is.
last time, is that
Shit.
it really sucks to put any cosmetic stuff on the explosion object, because the explosion object has to last for a very specific amount of time, because it's a gameplay thing. It exists for 0.2 seconds, and that's the time when it's dealing damage to everything. We can't have it stick around, really. This is really just a very functional damage-dealing volume. It's not really a visual effect. It happens to be the only visual effect we have at the moment, but we're going to create new ones. And so I don't want to add that to the explosion prefab. I don't think it makes sense. I think we'll end up in a situation where we're having to keep this thing alive and close off parts of it.
I
to
can,
make sure
but
that
I
everything happens. This damage radius will just be its own thing. And when we want a damage radius, we spawn this. When we want a cool, nice effect, we spawn this new object that we're going to make. So let's make a new object. I'm going to right click on scene and say game object create empty, and I'm going to name it death effect. So I guess on a very basic level, well, we'll need a script of some kind. So let's call it death effect. And on that script, when it opens, we could give it, one of the most basic obvious things we could do is give it a public float for shake amount. And then on start, as soon as this thing's created, the death effect is not going to be created until the thing dies, we can go to references, same way we would have called screen jolt. We go to references, screen shake, and we're just going to set shake amount, shake amount equals, what do we say? Oh, sorry, no, sorry. We're just setting a shake amount. So my idea is that this is, this behavior, we'll put it on all of the different death effects, and so we don't want to make any assumptions in here. We don't want to hard code it to be a small shake, because we'll use it for things like big shake as well. So that is really basic. So let's put in 0.5 there, and the only thing we have to do to hook this up, enemy prefab already has a slot for death effect, right? Somewhere, health system is where we store it. Right now it creates an explosion on death. I did say we were going to stop it from, we weren't going to make everything explode on death, and so let's have it, I haven't made it a prefab yet, have I? Excuse me. So I created this in the scene, now I'm going to drag it into the project folder to make it a prefab. And let's go back to our enemy prefab, and then where it says explosion, we will select instead death effect. And so now we've made the field temporarily worse, I think.
Well, there will be no explosion. We know that. To be honest, it's not very noticeable because of all the gun screen shake. It's certainly happening.
because when we shoot these things, I mean, you can hardly tell the shape because, and this is going to be even worse, because we've got a lot of jolt going on at the same time. So actually, that was a bad test. I should, let's update our death effect. I'm just going to delete this one from the scene for now, so I don't get confused. Let's actually give it 10, just so we can tell that it's working.
Let's watch his.
Yep, that's a significant shake. That actually feels not as crazy as I thought it was. I mean,
Jesus
crazy, but it doesn't feel
Christ.
horrible. It's also too much for the little guys, though. Okay, so actually another really easy thing we can do before we get into particle effects and stuff, let's stick to what we know for now. Let us... so one of the things we sort of... Awkwardly, we had to create a whole new object for the explosion sound. Well, with our death effect thing, this is going to hold all of our cosmetic stuff for death effects. It's going to hold the fancy visual stuff. It might as well also do the sound, because it's going to stick around until it's done with everything.
Okay.
And so let's go get that short explosion noise. We've added an audio source component just the same way we did for explosion sound. It's going to play on a wake, so that'll just be done. And then I am going to pretty much just take what we had. Let's see. Is it worth copy and pasting this, or should I just write it again from scratch? Explosion. Oh no, it was one shot. Oh my god, what has it done that for? Oh, that was a waste of time. Okay, I did not tell it to change focus, but it did. It was called one shot sound also. Yeah. This. So this is almost the code we need, and so I could just put a one shot sound component on this thing. Unfortunately, that doesn't quite work for our purposes, because one thing we want to do is we do want to kill it when the source is done playing, but really the key thing is that the problem is this component kills the object as soon as the sound is done playing, and so how long the effect thing sticks around is going to be dependent on just the length of the sound. You never want that kind of situation where like the visual effect is going to be when the sound gets destroyed. So I'm basically just going to adapt what we have here. If I just well, let's just copy it line by line. I'm just going to copy that thing. We'll probably not use that one-shot sound component again, but it's code. It's good code. I'm glad we wrote it because we've got it for our purposes here. So we declare a slot for the audio source. On startup, we look for an audio source component on ourselves. And then this is playing thing. We will use that, but actually we don't want to be dependent on that. We want to, let's just give this thing a duration. Maybe we don't need to. Maybe we don't need to. Okay. Yeah, let's do this. So we will check if our audio source playing will destroy ourselves. If it's not, but pretty soon we're going to add particle effects to this, and at that point we'll also want to check, is our particle system still running? So this is not finished code, this is just placeholder for now, but yeah, that integrates everything we were doing with that one-shot sound. So now we can have sounds on these things, and this might be enough that we can do prefab variants, which is a concept that is useful to know about. I guess I'm not waiting for anything to change here, am I? So we have a death effect. I guess that's everything.
Not going to do the explosion.
So all we're doing now is just checking that it creates. Yeah. Death effects created, and then they eventually disappear. And we should be hearing a sound again, which is good. So that explosion is a bit much. It's a bit much for the little guys. The big guys don't seem to have a death effect at all. So this is what I want to do, is we've got this one prefab. I want to create a variant of it. And actually, will they both be variants? Maybe. Can't quite decide. No, I think we'll keep the death effect. Let's just make this the death effect for the standard enemy, the enemy that we're dealing with most of the time. So they've got one now. And but I'm going to drag it into the scene. I'm going to change it some. So, actually, sorry, before I do this, let's delete it. Let's open this prefab. Let's get it set up how we want it for the little enemies. So 0.5 for screen shake, a tiny amount of screen shake, but you'll only notice it when there's a lot going on. And this sound for dying is okay, but let's actually make it quieter. There's a volume slider here. We're just going to set that to half. And let me just check if that feels all right.
It won't.
That actually
Did he actually put it
feels
on them?
a little bit loud, and the screen shake felt like too much, which is surprising. Let me just triple check that this is linking to the right thing. Yep, shake about 0.5. Okay, let's try 0.2. Oh, also, I'll look at the camera while this is happening and see if see what our shake amount is saying.
Whoa, that was weird what my camera did there. That was bizarre. It's working. This is pretty impressive already, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, that's all under control. That's actually too low, I think, now. Let's, I guess, do 0.4. Oh yeah, that feels right.
He hasn't
Destroying a lot of them, you can
realized
feel it getting rocky,
that it gets louder when they overlap.
but it's not too crazy. Cool. So the reason I wanted to configure it for them is that now I want to drag it into the scene, and let's configure it for the guards. The guards are much bigger enemies, they have more health, so I'm going to give them a full volume audio source, and we decided that 2 was about the right amount of screen shake for killing those things. And now that I've got that configured, excuse me, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go into the guard and death effect prefab. My options here are select something that's on the same game object as us, one of these things, or I go to the assets and select prefab. But I don't want either of those things because that death effect is configured for the small enemies, but it's not too crazy. Cool. So the reason I wanted to configure it for them is that now I want to drag it into the scene, and let's configure it for the guards. The guards are much bigger enemies, they have more health, so I'm going to give them a full volume audio source, and we decided that 2 was about the right amount of screen shake for killing those things. And now that I've got that configured, excuse me, what am I going to do? I'm not going to go into the guard and death effect prefab. My options here are select something that's on the same game object as us, one of these things, or I go to the assets and select prefab. But I don't want either of those things because that death effect is configured for the small enemies, and there's nothing on us that corresponds to it. I can't link it to this thing in the scene, nor would I want to, because I don't really want this thing to remain in the scene. So I want to make a new prefab with all these details. But we're going to change this prefab a lot. We're going to add particle effects to it and lights to it and stuff. I don't have to change 2 different prefabs every time I update it. So that's what prefab variants are for. So now that this is an instance of the prefab, I've modified it. You can see this word is in bold because it's been changed. The volume is in bold because it's been changed. And if I drag a modified prefab into my project folder, as if I'm trying to make a prefab, it says, oh, do you want to make a new prefab or a variant of the prefab? We want a variant. And it's got very branching paths modifier to that. So this is death effect. I'm going to call it big death effect for the guards. And so now we don't need this instance in the scene anymore. This is now, we can edit this one that has the shake amount of 2 and the full volume, or we can edit the original one that has half volume and shake amount of 0.4. And so let's actually do it. Let's hook it up. Guard, scroll down to their health system, where it says death effect prefab. Let's choose an asset, and let's choose big death effect. So now we should have 2 different death effects going on. I appreciate they're very minimal visual effects at the moment. In fact, they're not visual effects.
I do still have one in the level. That's why there was an explosion as soon as I started up the test. There we go. Ah! What? Thank you.
Yes, I am the Lord.
Sir for Devon, thank you for 54 months. Okay.
That's a significant blast from one death. If I shoot this guy, almost imperceptible blast, isn't it? Yeah, and the noise is louder too. It's a little bit hard to hear over all the weapon noises, and I appreciate it. I have had to turn my desktop volume down a lot so that I'm still audible. I hope I'm still audible. Okay, cool. That's all of our screen check stuff. That's prefab variants explained. Now we're going to add particle effects. Or shall we do lights first? Because lights is maybe a bigger return on our investment quicker. So the main thing I want to stress with this, we put the sound on the actual root game object, but for anything else, we're going to create smaller ones within it. And I've created a new game object and I've added, and I said light. I've added a component called light. That's a pre-made one.
Hold on. What did you do, Tom?
And we want to stress with this. We put the sound on the actual root game as explained. Now we're going to add particle effects. Or shall we do lights first? Because lights is maybe a bigger return on our investment quicker. So the main thing I want to stress with this, we put the sound on the actual root game object, but for anything else, we're going to create smaller ones within it. And I've created a new game object and I've added, and I said light. I've added a component. Called light. That's a pre-made one. And we want to set up a light that's going to fade it, like shrink over time. Fade in intensity over time. And the reason I'm especially keen to make it a child object is that I want to, it needs to be a little bit off the ground. Remember our guards and stuff are at, their y coordinate is 0. If you create a light at 0, it's kind of halfway through the ground, and it's kind of touch and go whether it shows up at all. It might, whether the game considers it's beneath the ground or above the ground is arbitrary. So you don't want that. We want to create it a bit above the ground. The problem with working with all this stuff is when I go to edit the prefab, like, okay, I can switch to scene view, and here's my death effect. What the hell am I looking at here? Like, I can, okay, there's a light here. Oh, let's name the game object light. I can increase its range. Oh, you can see a circle there getting bigger when I do that. But God, how do I judge whether this is right or wrong? And I can increase the intensity, but like, there's nothing to illuminate. So there is a way to make this much easier. When I was doing my practice run of this, I thought this is hopeless. So I've got to put an instance in the scene and keep editing the instance, and that's terrible. You can see the effect it's having, but then every time you make a change, you've got to remember to apply it to the prefab, which is this manual process that gets kind of tedious. So instead, we're going to fix it the proper way, which is to go to Edit, Project Settings, and somewhere here there's an Editor category, and amongst that, Prefab Editing Environments. And so that is the scene that when you're editing a prefab itself, it puts it on a blank canvas basically, if we click, sorry, just to explain, where it says regular environment here, all the way along here, there's a little target icon. Click on that, and then the only option is sample scene, which is the only scene we have. That's the one we're making, and hopefully, I think by clicking the close button, I aborted without without accepting that change. No, I didn't. I did save that change. Maybe I need to get out of this and go back into it. Yes, okay, I do. All right, so now we basically have a admittedly slightly weird looking version of our scene, and we're still just editing the prefab. I guess the upside of it looking really weird is we're not going to forget we're editing a prefab, so that's nice. And our prefab is roughly where it will spawn.
Excusez-moi. Why did that work for him and not for me? Oh, I was on the game screen. Duh. All right. Well, mine is under a wall, Tom.
If I died here and I had a death effect, this is where it spawns. It spawns at y equals 0. And that's important because I want to make sure that this light is a little bit above. And then let's give it a bigger range. Oh, sorry, there's one more step. There's a little lighting icon here. If we click that, now we can actually see some lights. Yeah, like I said, it's a bizarro version of this world. We don't seem to get the lighting that the scene actually has, but that's okay, because all we want to know is just does this. If this was at y0, you can see there's a problem, right? We're not seeing any light. We should be seeing some light, so I've got to drag it up a bit. We do want it fairly close to the ground, I think. That seems about right, and let's give it, well, the settings are going to be different for different things. So the one we're editing right now is our small death. It's our small enemy has died, and that's probably all the light it deserves. It sounds really harsh. Actually, let's increase the range a little bit right now, because what I want to do is also set the color, and I want to pick a color that feels explosion-y. I'm going to drag that all the way to that side. What should an explosion feel like? Somewhere in the orange range, isn't it? Something like that. And you can make it paler too. That maybe a bit more orange. Yeah, that'll do. That's quite a small light, and last thing to do is there's a render mode thing down here that's set to auto. I find I need to set it to important, otherwise you just don't see the light at all. It's sort of, if it's auto, the engine decides whether or not to show you the light at all, because for performance reasons. If our game slows down, then we can think about how many lights we need and all that stuff, but because our game's pretty simple, I'm not finding that it does. So we've added a light to our death effect. We should find that when we kill small things now, when we kill anything actually,
No? Oh.
oh wow, quite a big light. Oh my god, it's huge. Yeah, so that prefab scene has its limits for how well we can judge the effect of what we're doing. I guess, but I can edit this while we're going. So let's reduce intensity just down to 1. That's still extremely intense. Let's reduce range down to 5. Still extremely intense. For one of them, that's all right. I guess we go lower than 1 for intensity. 0.5 intensity. Yeah, I want it to be fairly subtle unless we kill a lot of them. Maybe that's a little bit low. I can drag it up a bit. I'm changing my mind. I'm going to put that to 1, and we'll just reduce the radius a bit. Yeah, that's good enough. As you notice, the visual problem with that is it vanishes very abruptly, but we can fix that, because what we will do is, just like we have an audio source, we'll have a, let's actually have a public light, my light, and we want to store we could reduce its range, or we could reduce its intensity. I think it makes sense to reduce its intensity. It's totally up for debate. If I just say float light, max light intensity, then on startup we are going to do max light intensity equals my light dot intensity, and we haven't established a reference to it yet because we're going to do that in the inspector. The reason for that being that it isn't on the same object as the script that we're writing. The script we're writing is on the death effect parent game object, and the light is a child, so we're just going to drag it from the hierarchy into that slot, and it gets a reference to the light. And then we also need a public float for duration of this whole death effect, and we'll have a private float for seconds. What? How did I phrase this before? I've written this already today. I can't remember what I called it. Seconds alive? I feel like, what do we want? I want it to be 0 when you're nearly dead. So seconds left. I'll just put seconds left, yeah. And then on startup, seconds left equals duration. If you're wondering why did I make this public and then make this one public, this one we're going to set in the inspector. This one, it's its own internal count of how long have I been alive. We should never be editing that outside of this. I don't really care about, you can just make everything public if you're in doubt. There's no problem with that. It just gets a bit confusing if you have a lot of them all and you're not sure which ones you're supposed to be editing in the inspector. So one of them is the standard for how long should we be alive normally, and then the other one is an internal count of how long have we been alive. Did I forget to save? Yes. And hopefully, yeah, we're editing the base prefab of death effect. So duration for this, let's just make it 1 second. And then we need to set a duration, because what we want to know, to set the light intensity, we're going to, in update, we'll do my light intensity equals something. What should it equal? Well, we want like a fraction that represents how alive we are. It's going to fade out over time, so when it starts, we want it to be 1. So the easy way to write that is seconds left divided by duration. That by itself, that's going to start at 1 and slope off to 0, because seconds left, how many seconds do we have left? When that is 0, this fraction will equal 0, because anything 0 divided by anything is 0. And duration, sorry, when we start, seconds left is equal to duration. We literally just said that. In start, seconds left equals duration. If these two things are the same, it will be 1. But we don't want to actually go from 1 to 0, because light intensity, we don't know what that is. It's going to be set differently for different enemies. So we're going to multiply it by max light intensity. And then we also want to actually, let's do seconds left reduced by time dot delta time, a normal countdown code. And then if seconds left less than or equal to 0, destroy our cells, but actually this code inside, this is what we want. Destroy cells as long as our audio source is not playing. If our audio source is still playing, then just wait. And we don't need to worry about missing the moment that we should have destroyed ourselves, because this is going to keep running. Seconds left can only ever be reduced. Once it's below 0, it'll always be below 0. And so every time we're checking, is our audio source done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Yes, okay, we can destroy ourselves. And if our audio source is long done before this ticks down, then that's fine too, because we'll get here and we'll check and we'll find it's not playing, so we destroy ourselves. So this is just a 2-layer check, basically. I hope that all makes sense. We're ticking down a timer, we're checking what the fraction left is, and then we're using that to modify our light intensity. Yeah, fades out nicely. That's pretty cool. And now that we have that, we can now edit our big death prefab, and we should find it's already got a light in it. So this is how prefabs work. You edit this is how prefab variants work. If you edit the parent, the variants are all going to get those changes. I think I said that wrong. If you edit the parent, the variants are all going to get those changes. If you edit the variant, the parent is not going to get those changes. The variant is just like an instance, really. It's just it's like a one-up from an instance. If this is prefabs like a master copy, these instances, the individuals that nobody else cares about, and then a variant is somewhere in between. It inherits from the parent, but instances can inherit from it. And so all of which is to say we can make the light's range better. In fact, let's switch to scene view so we can see it. Let's move it out of that lump. And I seem to have to turn lighting back on. Yeah, I do. Yeah, if lighting is not happening, then you've got to click that little sun icon here. That is quite small. Let's give it a nice big range, because the range, you can see it affects, like, you know, why am I explaining what range is? You know what range is. And let's increase the intensity a lot. It's cool because, like, there's such a, you know, it looks like a molten lava or something at the core, doesn't it? That's just a nice side effect of the particular effective surfaces we have. Yeah,
why is mine
that strong?
In...
And what we should find is that our code nicely adapts to that custom intensity, and will fade it out just as well as it does for the small ones. Nope, it doesn't. Why doesn't it?
It did.
The big death effect variant has been modified. All of that is there. Let me just check. One thing that's useful to know when you're looking into a bug is this reference. I'm hoping it's to this thing. So when I click this, it should highlight it in the hierarchy, and it does. So that's the right reference. I'm not referencing one thing there. We're not saying anything at all, though, are we? It's extinguishing too soon, which doesn't exist. Render mode is important. The light is at the right height. So the last thing to check is, does the guard really have a reference to this? Big death effect. It does. Maybe the prefab just didn't save. I'll save the scene as well. Oh, it's got something. Oh, it's way offset, is it? Did I move the light instead of the parent prefab? Yes, I moved the light instead of the parent prefab. Sorry, that X position being minus 17 was incorrect. When I
That
saw it
would
was in the
do
wrong
it.
position, I guess I already had the light selected. I thought I had the parent prefab selected. So select big death effect, then drag that over, and now we should be saying the right thing. So the X position of the parent prefab being weird is fine. Its location in this placeholder scene is irrelevant. Nobody cares. But its children objects, that really does matter. These should always be 0 unless there's, now I'm worrying that it's saying that X being 0 is an override. It's in bold, as if that's not true in death effect. So I couldn't just right click and apply it there, but I just want to check. Is that true? Is death effect also got a messed up light? No, it hasn't. It's the same. Okay, so that's a thing to know, I guess. Prefab variants, when they go bold, when a thing goes bold, doesn't necessarily mean that it's genuinely different. It just means it has been changed at some point. So I'm going to choose revert here. So if I say apply, it means it changes the parent to match us. If I say revert, it means it changes us to match the parent. Neither matters in this case because the values are the same, but I'm just going to click revert because I think that'll make it not be bold. And it's confusing that it's bold. Okay. Yeah, that's a nice explosion. That, to be honest, if I tried this before we made an explosion effect, I wouldn't have bothered to make an explosion effect because that's way better than what we
His looks better. I'm not sure why. Like, my light just isn't visible. It's visible on the walls, but it's not visible on the floor. It shouldn't be in the floor though, because, well, let's go into this. Now, why don't I see my scene? I see it for this, but I don't see it for the variant. Oh, I'm so fucking far away. Oh my fuck. Holy Lord. Is it because it's in? Oh, fuck. I have to position the parent, don't I? That's the issue here. Which was, I don't know, it's like, whoa. How about like that? Here we go.
had. All right, both of those.
Well, if I'm wrong food, then this shouldn't work. It didn't work. Ah. Okay. So this one is the one that needs to be like that, I guess. I understand that the children's position is relative, so you don't have to reteach me from square one. Ah, hell, I moved the fucking child. there. Whoa. Okay. I think now we're good in all ways. Cool. Hey, Jeff. Yeah, we've got some real juice. We got some sauce.
Good. Cool. All right, that's all good. And the next thing I want to do is particle effects. Particle effects are quite. You have a lot of options. So we've got our def effect prefab. Make sure it's the master one, not the variant. Because if I made changes to the variant, it wouldn't happen to the master. And I'm going to say create empty and add component particle system. I do it that way. There's no reason, when you right click on this, there's also a way to go through these menus and find effects and then particle system. You just add that and that'll create an empty game object with that. It's just a matter of habit that I create empty game objects all the time. Let's call it particles. So particles is a game development term for these things that you're seeing spitting out of the light. They are very simple objects that are usually going to be created in large numbers. The reason they exist, the reason it's not, we don't just create a load of game objects, is that these are much better performance-wise. It's sort of a system that's built to run really well, and there's loads of things moving, but in relatively simple ways. But actually, these days, I mean, that's how they started, and they used to be incredibly basic. But these days, you can do things like add physics to them, and they can be 3D if you like. We're not going to.
Why is his playing? Oh. There we go. Okay. All right. Okay.
Get too fancy, but we will put physics on it. The sort of complexity is in just the number of options you have here. Like that's just this right here is like category 1 of this many categories of things we can edit. So you have a lot of control, but it's also you are just sort of trying to do all this by experimentation is hell, because there are so many weird little gotchas and things that are strangely phrased. And yeah, if you don't get it right, it's not clear from the results what you did wrong. So luckily, I have done hours of messing around with this and looking at other tutorials and trying to figure out how the hell you do it. So you don't have to. So in our tutorial folder, I made an image for this because, well, I guess it's going to open in Microsoft Photos, and it can't show you anything. This image, soft.png, it will obviously be included in the files I upload, but it's, I'll drag it into Unity right now. I'm just going to, this is something I made in Photoshop. I made it by literally creating a new canvas, having a white brush with sort of half hardness, if you know what that means, and just clicking once in the middle of the canvas, and that's it. That's how I made the image. So it's a soft dot, and that is going to be the basis for our image. I'm dragging it straight into our project folder, and there it is. It looks like a white square right now, but if I go to texture type here, and I say sprite, and then I click apply, we should see, yeah, now we can see what it really is. So it's a soft dot. So I want these pink squares to be instead of white soft dot. That's just a general good. What we want to create is like shower sparks, really, and just glowing points of light. Pretty reliable as and versatile as a particle. Everything online seems to suggest Unity comes with this as a standard thing. I couldn't find it anyway, so I just made it myself. And yeah, if you can't make it yourself, then it will be in the files that with this episode. Or if your version of Unity does have this built in somehow, and you can find it, then good luck to you. There's another step to this though. So our particle system here, when I want to tell it how the particle should look, the category for that is renderer, that's relatively intuitive, right? We have on anything that has.
Okay, I don't have that file, so gotta make one real quick. I don't know how big he made that. So I'm going to go with 100 by 100. And a bit less than that because I'm not going to be right in the center. Okay. I think he had a space in his file name. This upsets me. I'm upset.
As a visual model or anything, we have a mesh renderer. A renderer just means like, drawing it to the screen. So I click on that, and there's a load of options here, but it doesn't want a sprite from me. I kept looking for a place to drag a sprite into, and you can't. You can only drag a material.
Oh no, no, don't. No. Isn't that all he did? Why not work? Oh, I do apply it. Okay, there we go. Sick.
Material in. And we created materials before, and I just want to recap what they are, because I thought of a metaphor for it. So this soft dot is it's a sprite, it's a PNG image, it's, you're familiar with images. That is a digital photo, it's like a digital photo. And a material is like what you printed on. So do you want your photo on glossy paper? Do you want it just printed on like standard A4? Do you want it projected in light on the side of a building? Do you want all those things that make it look different, right? But it's the same image. So that's what a material is. It's a way of it's what the image is drawn on, basically, what kind of material, yeah. So we're going to create material, and I'm just going to call it particle material, I guess. And right up top there's a shader category, and under particles, that's intuitive enough. We want standard unlit. I probably explained this before, but unlit is a weird way of saying it's going to be really lit. It's going to be very bright. It's not going to care what the global lighting is. It's just going to be full brightness all the time. That's what we want for particles because they are glowing themselves. And after I do this is another thing that I think is very unintuitive and hard to see. Like, where do I set the sprite? Like I just told you that material is like you take a digital photo and then you figure out how you're going to print it, and it's the combination of those things. Where do I set the photo? It's albedo. Not the most obvious option for this, but you click that and now I can select our soft dot. Oh, there's the default particle. I couldn't find that before for some reason. Like it's not in this folder. I guess is it in packages? Anyway, it doesn't matter where it is because we've made it now. So yeah, albedo. Like, I don't really know what it means. It's something to do with opacity. It's sort of like a map of which bits are transparent, maybe? I don't know, don't know my advice. I think that's all we're going to do for now. That's our sprite done. And now we go back to our particles, and we scroll back down to renderer, and where it says material, we can click on this. It's all the tiniest font, but we should be able to see particle material. And that doesn't look right yet, does it? Why is that? Oh, I know why. Our particle material, I think we missed a step. Where is it? Particle material. Render mode opaque. We don't want opaque. You would think we want transparent, wouldn't you? That's what I went for. I thought, great, transparent, that's what I want. No, it's fade. Transparent doesn't work, fade does. Okay. Can't tell you why, just pick fade. Okay, back to particles. Now they are all splitting out like this. I'm going to make a small change. This isn't a thing you absolutely have to do. I don't like that orange outline around them. I find it difficult to see what the particle really looks like with that on. So under gizmos, there's this selection outline thing. Gizmos is their word for like all the extra stuff they're drawing on top for the in editor mode that you wouldn't see when you're playing the game. And one of the ones I don't like is selection outline, so I'm going to uncheck it. Now we can see what it really looks like. Okay, so as an explosion effect, the main problem is it's a continuous drift of snow going in a different direction.
Lord.
It's not far from a smoke effect, but it's not an explosion effect yet. The first thing I want to change about this is scroll down.
Anonymous.
Emission. This is like, how is it?
Like that GIF
shape. Let's change shape first. So when I click shape, we can see it's firing in this cone, and it says cone here. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to say sphere instead. I want it going in all directions, right? Explosion goes in all directions. Okay, next problem is emission. The problem with emission is that it's all just happening all the time, continuously. I don't want that. I want it to happen in a burst. And here there's a little category called bursts, and it says list is empty. That means no bursts are happening at all. This is not a burst. This is a continuous flow. So if I click the plus down here, I can create a burst and count 30. That's not bad, actually. Probability 10. Oh, you can see it, a little burst there. So that's our burst set up. We can change the values for that later if we want. I think I need to set rate over time to 0. Yeah, there we go. and now we can see the burst, right? And I guess it's looping, so yeah, we'll see it continuously while we edit. So that's ultimately we don't want it to loop, but I'm going to leave that checked for now because while we're editing, it's quite useful to be able to see it over and over again. Duration of 5 is pretty long. I'm going to say 2 instead, just so we can see it loop more often. And then what else do we want to change? It's going a bit slow, I would say. If these are supposed to be sparks and explosion, this is in real time. We're not in slow-mo here. Let's make that start our image. I'm dragging it straight into our project folder, and there it is. 20. It's starting to feel like an explosion, isn't it?
The control arrow
is
is like way too much.
I'm not going to change starting color because I want the color to change over time, and there's a separate category for that. Gravity modifier is 0, so there's no gravity. And I guess it's looping, so yeah, we'll see it continuously while we edit. So that's ultimately. And here there's a little category called bursts, and it says list is empty. That means no bursts are happening at all. This is not a burst. This is a continuous flow. So if I click the plus down here, I can create a burst and count
Yes,
30.
I
That's
am
not bad,
the
actually.
Lord.
An anonymous user
4, 10,
gifted
we
a
can see it,
tier
no
1
burst there.
sub to Mantis.
So that's our burst set up. We can change the values.
Anonymous, thank you for that gift
I think I
sub.
need to set rate over time to 0. Yeah, there we go. And now we can see the burst, right? And I guess it's looping, so yeah, we'll see it continuously while we edit. So that's ultimately we don't want it to loop, but I'm going to leave that checked for now because while we're editing, it's quite useful to be able to see it over and over again. Duration of 5 is pretty long. I'm going to say 2 instead, just so we can see it loop more often. And then what else do we want to change? It's going a bit slow, I would say. If these are supposed to be sparks and explosion, this is in real time. We're not in slow-mo here. Let's make that start speed much faster. Like 20. It's starting to feel like an explosion, isn't it? Then what else here do we want to mess with? I'm not going to change starting color because I want the color to change over time, and there's a separate category for that. Gravity modifier is 0, so there's no gravity. What if we say 1? You can just about tell that they're falling, but it takes ages. Don't worry about realism here, because who the hell knows what these objects are. What if we say 10? Well, now that's probably too much. Now it's happening on, what's the planet with heavy gravity? It's Venus. That's too much. So what's 5 like? Not bad. Not bad. Let's leave it as 5 for now. We can change it later if we need to.
Very cool.
I'm going to go through and do what I think are the kind of most important things here. You are very free to spend as long as you like tinkering all these things. There's so many. I've spent ages messing around with this stuff to find out what actually matters. And it's quite fun, actually. It can be fun. It's frustrating when you don't know the essentials because you're just like, well, I want to know like all this complexity and I just want to change the sprite or I just want the color to actually change. So that's decent. The next thing that's bothering me is collision. I want them to collide with stuff. So there's a collision category here. With each of these categories, they're unchecked by default, so you check them as well if you want them. Is this really the best we can do for lighting? Maybe I'll turn the lighting off. I gotta say that doesn't appear to be colliding properly. Okay, so type planes. What that's saying is that you don't need to know. I did explain planes once. If you remember that, then well done. I've created total chaos. So they are bouncing around.
Excuse me, sir. Ah, there it is. Whoa, okay.
Around all over the place now. And you saw before, it wasn't an excessive number of these things. Partly, I guess, that maybe we're looping it too often, but actually I think the problem here is that our things don't decelerate. They shoot out at full speed and they carry on at full speed until they vanish. Dampen. Oh, bounce. Okay, so bounce is at 1. I believe that means when it bounces off something, how much of its original speed does it maintain? And it's basically 100%. What if we just said that 0.5? Ooh, that really slows the game down to edit that at all. I'm going to stop this. It's kind of confusing. All the old ones are... Man, they really bounce around for a long time, don't they? Maybe this thing shouldn't last for 2 seconds. Maybe it should last for 1 second. I feel like it's keeping the old ones around even after... Well, let's just turn off looping, because I think that's a confusing issue.
They need
so if I
to
now
die.
just click play, we see it once. They do bounce around for ages after. That is not 1 second, is it? No way is that 1 second. Because I'm an idiot, duration is kind of irrelevant. No, it's not relevant. Duration is how long before it kills all the particles. No, that can't be right. I don't know what duration is. Lifetime is what I should have been changing. Start lifetime, that's lifetime of each particle. So if I say 1 for that, and we play it, everything disappears real fast. That's an okay amount of time, but obviously they vanish very abruptly. So another thing we've got to change is size over lifetime. Let's check that. We want the size of them to change
it
over
is
lifetime.
quite a lot.
That's intuitive. The thing that isn't intuitive is, so let's do that. Great, they start small and they get big. Yeah, that's what we want. That's what every particle system wants, is tiny things that grow into massive things and then vanish into nowhere. I don't know why that's the default. So you want to click it, right? Like, let's click this thing. Change it. Why can't I change it? Because the curve editor is down here, and I've got to drag it up. It'll be a bit different on your screen, probably. And this is where you actually edit the curve. This is just kind of an illusion, like a mirage of the desert. The desert of not being able to edit curves. And you can mess around with this individually. Like, this is a Bezier curve, where each point has handles on it, and you drag those handles, it changes kind of how the line wants to, changes the curve, I guess. Looking at it will explain it much better than anything I can say.
But there's these
but actually,
here.
there's presets down here. So I kind of wish it did loop now. Let's turn looping back on just for now, because I want to be able to watch it while it's happening.
Yeah, I knew it would be useful, and so I kept it on.
Okay, so this is still growing. We don't want it to grow. Let's click a different arrow that is shrinking. That's quite nice. I think there is even, if I click this curvy one, that's better, isn't it? I can't really say why, but that's better. Looks more sparky. Sparks should shrink rapidly. So this is starting to look good now. This is most of the way there, I think. The biggest thing left now, I think, is color. I think I'm going to change color over lifetime. Check that one. Expand it. Click on this. I've got some memory that we've done something like this already, a gradient editor. Did we do it for the beam?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did it for the beam, didn't we? So this is a very similar principle.
Yeah.
This is basically a gradient, and the tabs at the top and bottom, one of them is color, the bottom one's are color, and the top ones are alpha, so transparency. So if I set alpha to 0 at the end, then you'll see they get more transparent over their lifetime. And it's not super important, actually, since they're shrinking anyway. So maybe I won't do that. Yeah, I'm going to leave it full.
Why would you do that?
Starting white is pretty good, actually. But if I just click here, I've inserted a new point. Let's have them go yellow around here. So they start white and go yellow, and they go back to white again. I actually think the very end, they should probably be red, like sort of the end of the explosion. That's nice, isn't it? Ooh, I like that already. In fact, maybe we're done. I was going to add an orange thing in the middle, but I guess when you go from yellow to red, who knew you go through orange? Yeah, that's good. I do not need to see any more. So should we try it? Are we that far advanced? I think so.
Yes. I think we are that far advanced. Okay. Tom, get out of my face, dude. Okay. Ooh. That's pretty cool. Oh, wow. It's probably a bit much for the little guys. But, yeah. Pretty cool. Isn't that awesome? Oh, it's crazy when these things all come together. How much of a difference that makes on something that hasn't really changed. Right? Nothing much has changed here. It's the same weapons. Enemies are the same. They move the same. They come out the same. The placements are all the same. The only thing that's changed here is how things look. You know, I'm realizing that what needs to be done to fix bullets as well. Because since this isn't really meant to be like a crazy ballistics-based system or anything like that, the bullets should just... First of all, I don't think that they should have gravity or anything like that at all. I guess they don't. But they should just be locked to one plane. They shouldn't be able to move on the y-axis at all. And also, when they contact anything, they should just delete themselves. Wall or anything like that. And probably they should have their own little death effect as well, with a little spark. Not like this, because this is intense. But a little spark when they hit the wall or something like that, and they're just gone. This thing where they fade away. But I mean, now that we've done this stuff, it's arguably very feasible to do the exact same thing for bullets as well. Yeah, now I know how I could do that. Yeah, a little muzzle flare would be pretty neat. That is satisfying as heck now. Don't you think? When this all comes together... Shell casings, yeah. That could be absolutely done with something similar like that. I haven't done any of this in GitHub. I haven't made a repo for this. It's just local. It's very nice though. Really, really good looking effects there, I think.
Yeah, this all looks good.
I love it.
And, oh yeah, last thing, sorry. Looping, got to uncheck looping, because we're just doing that for our own purposes. You can still test it by clicking this. Yeah, I like that.
Oh, the looping
Okay,
didn't really matter because they die.
I expect it's going to be a bit too much of it. It's quite a heavy... Wow. Yeah, it's quite a lot. But it works really well with that, doesn't it? Where this thing is it's only killing them occasionally. When you kill hundreds in one shot, like you do with this thing, it's a bit excessive, but it is satisfying. I gotta turn this down just for my own purposes because it's hard to hear myself. Yeah, man, that feels so much better. And seeing all those sparks like bounce in the corridor, that's what I really like. Makes them feel real. It might be a bit big actually. Let me. I'm going to reduce the number, that burst that we set up is count 30. Let's try 15, and then also initial size. Now where is that? Start size is 1 right now. Let's just try 0.5. Ooh, it's quite nice. That's very small now. Let's just see how that feels.
How many?
I actually didn't need to stop the game to do that. We can edit it live. Ooh, I like that. Yeah, that's nice. It's not a big deal, but it shouldn't be, because these are tiny areas. Oh, that's great. Man, that looks so much better.
I missed like all of his changes. It doesn't have to be exactly the same as his, but
Is 1 right now. Let's just try 0.5. Ooh, it's quite nice. All those sparks like bounce in the corridor, that's what I really like. Makes them feel real. It might be a bit big actually. Let me. I'm going to reduce the number, that burst that we set up is count 30. Let's try 15, and then also initial size. Now where is that? Start size is 1 right now. Let's just try 0.5. Ooh, it's quite nice. That's very small now. Let's just see how that feels. I actually didn't need to.
they probably
Do
do.
that. We can edit it live. Is 1 right now. Let's just try 0.5. Yeah, that's nice. It's not a big deal, but it shouldn't be, because these are tiny areas. Oh, that's great. Man, that looks so much better. Who knew? That I really like. But to be honest, it's better than what I made in practice. Awesome. I think that's perfect for them. And so now, when we go to edit our big death effect, the variant, we should find it's inherited the particle system. It's got all these settings. So all we need to do is just change it how we want it to be different for the big guy. And I think I want the particle.
Oh yeah, we can change it separately for the big guy. Awesome. Sick. Nice.
First of all, it'll be bigger, so that the start size, let's put it back at 1. There should be way more of them. That is an emission, the burst, 15. I'll go higher than 30, I think 50. Maybe even more.
Where's
What's
that?
100 like?
Oh, here.
That's good. Maybe the size is a bit big though. Let's do just like a 0.67. Yeah, I like that. And what does it look like if we make their lifetime a bit longer? Start lifetime. Better. I like it. Yeah, that's good. And that might be it. The only thing I want to check is back in our death effect, there's a duration counter here. I would like that to match the duration of the particles, lifetime of the particles, because otherwise it will destroy itself and all of the particles with it.
Excuse
Let's
me.
just look at what that looks like right now. I would like that to match. I like it. Yeah, that's good. And that might be it. The only thing I want to check is back in our death effect, there's a duration counter here. I would like that to match the duration of the particles, lifetime of the particles, because otherwise it will destroy itself and all of the particles with it. Let's just look at what that looks like right now. There might be a smarter way to do that. Man, I'm in love with that one. Oh, that's good. Yeah, man, the big light, the big screen shake. It's like a glowing core is left over.
Wait, do those guys not shake the screen? Big guys?
Oh, that doesn't sound very impressive. A few short tutorial episodes ago. A few hours ago in tutorial time. God damn, that feels so good. I'm just playing the game now, I forgot what I'm testing.
They don't.
Yeah, I'm gonna just quickly... Nah, I'm not gonna do it. This episode's getting kind of long. I reckon there's a way that we could check in code, is our particle system still doing something? In fact, I'm pretty sure there is. And that would be better than us changing the lifetime here, and then also having to remember to change the duration there. But actually, we're not creating hundreds of these, it's going to be like 3 or 4. And if we hit that problem, it'll be obvious when we hit that problem, so it's not that important. So I think that is it for this time. Hello. This time, we're going to do a menu. We've done some field stuff now. This stuff is pretty much done. Explosion debris, lights and particle effects. Only some enemies explode, I said. Now none of them explode. We'll put exploding enemies back in, but I don't think they'll be quite how they were before, and it's not the most important thing left to do. I would say the thing that... two things. One is we need credits because we've used people's sounds now, and I've been just packaging in a credits text file with the thing.
There is no screen shake upon death. But why? I don't know.
Files that I've been uploading, but obviously before we ever release this, we need actual credits that the player can find more easily. And then another thing, game flow, we want the ability to restart the game, because right now, once you get into a state you want to be in, you just have to close the game again and launch it.
I have 0 for shake amount. Oh, for the guards 2 and for the little guy 0.5. Maybe it's not enough. I think that's what Tom used. Well, now there's a pronounced effect when they explode. Now it's an action game. Let's go. Oh my god. Probably too much. I'll do 1 and I'll do 5. That'll be good.
So credits and restart actually can be solved by the same thing, which is a menu.
What are we doing here?
We can do both those things in a menu, or we should have one anyway.
Menus
stuff
and
like the goal
events.
state at the next
Ooh.
level. I think that'll be a future ep. So let's make this. Okay, tabs are weird in Notepad. Look, I've said it. I said what I'm going to do. That's what we're going to do. I don't need to write it down. I'm not on trial here. Before we do that, there is one little thing that we should address, which is that as we once we trigger a lot of things and we start blowing them all up, suddenly notice the guards' lights disappear. You can probably guess why that is, because you might remember we had to set this important flag on the explosion lights and to make sure that they always showed up. And so what we've got to do is just do that on the guards as well. If Unity ever recovers. It's not quite sure what state it's in right now. It's half playing. That's weird. Should I just close it? Let's do a tutorial on dealing with Unity being weird. I probably would have recovered if I left it long enough, but I just couldn't tell that it was doing anything. Oh, no, that's not plugged in. I should plug it in. Okay. So we just want to go to the guard, and we're not going to edit the instance, we're going to edit the prefab. Click on open here, and then we see the spotlight, and something here there's render mode, auto. Let's make sure it's important. Those are important. They're actually gameplay elements. If we ever did hit some performance problem where, if we just had too many lights and Unity was complaining about it, I think we'd take them off the small explosion and leave them on the big explosion. I also noticed something else, which is that I think our kick is more of a bigger issue. It's amazing that this isn't a bigger issue than it is, but it's noticeable mainly with the shotgun. If I get the shotgun, like actually, I'm firing to the left, and really the level moves to the left when I fire, and then recovers. So I can't really intuit this out in my head, but I did what seemed logical to me, which is move the camera in the opposite direction that we fired. It was transform.forward times negative kick amount. Let's just delete the negative, make it positive, and then the jolt goes in the direction, goes back from where we're firing. I think it's to do with, like, if you move the camera to the left, the level appears to move right. So that's the inversion. Basically, it's inverted twice. Like, one, we don't want it to go in the direction we fire, we want it to go the opposite direction. But then two, we're moving the camera, not the level, and so it's a double negative. I think that's slightly better. It's weird, it doesn't make a bigger difference than it does, but I think that is better than what we had. And also just because we've got a bit of cleanup to do in the scene here, I'm just going to delete these enemies. They are not, the idea is not to have roaming enemies that are seeking you right away. We've still got a railgun beam floating around here, I'm going to delete that, that shouldn't be there. And we could also, this wall was only there to test a thing. I think I'm just going to actually delete it and just duplicate an existing obstacle, so I just clicked on it and did Control D, and now I'm just going to, if I hold Control while I drag it, that locks it to a grid.
Where the fuck? Ah, here it was.
Although, actually, probably I should move it out of the way and make sure I move everything else first. So, railgun, we definitely want to keep. Put it over there somewhere. And then, yeah, this duplicated obstacle, so move it there, get our level back to where it was. This isn't a great level. It's not worth actually making a proper level yet, because we need guard behavior, the guards roaming and stuff. That is going to define what a level needs to have. Like, it doesn't need to have little alcoves that you duck into as the guard passes and stuff like that. We need to have that behavior in place before we can make the levels. So it's just a prototype testing ground at the moment. So I think that's us caught up. So now we want to make a menu. And we already have a canvas, right? Because we did these health bars. I think this health bar should be much smaller, by the way. And we made a thing called canvas behavior. I'm just going to drag this up to the top. You don't have to do this, but it's just kind of convenient. I'm going to right click on this canvas. And the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is make an image. So I'm going to go down to UI, user interface, and choose image here. And now, and we already alcoves the obstacle. Although actually probably I should move it out of the way and make sure I move everything else first. So railgun, we definitely want to keep. Put it over there somewhere. And then, yeah, this duplicated obstacle, so move it there, get our level back to where it was. This isn't a great level. It's not worth actually making a proper level yet, because we need guard behavior, the guards roaming and stuff. That is going to define what a level needs to have. Like, it doesn't need to have little alcoves that you duck into as the guard passes and stuff like that. We need to have that behavior in place before we can make the levels.
Yeah.
So it's just a prototype testing ground at the moment.
Yeah.
So I think that's us caught up. So now we want to make a menu. And we already have a canvas, right? Because we did these health bars. I think this health bar should be much smaller, by the way. And we made a thing called canvas behavior. I'm just going to drag this up to the top. You don't have to do this, but it's just kind of convenient. I'm going to right click on this canvas. And the first thing I'm going to do, I think, is make an image. So I'm going to go down to UI, user interface, and choose image here. And now, looking at the stuff in scene view is a bit weird, because I probably covered this when we did health bars, but that's where our image is up there. The game world is the bottom left corner of the canvas. It doesn't really make sense to think of these two things as even occupying the same space. They happen to in Unity scene view, but really we've got to look at the game view to see it. And now we see there's a big white image in the middle. So I want this to be a button. And to do that, I might just drag out the width a bit, make it wider, probably make it less high, shorter. And I think, let me try a little experiment. There's a change I'm going to make, and I just want to see if I can demonstrate to you why we need to make the change. If I pull out the game tab here, there's our button. If I make it smaller, yeah, look, this goes completely crazy. Oh, well, actually, it sort of adjusts eventually. But, okay, pay attention to how much of the game world the button is obscuring. If I make the window too small, it just fills the whole thing. So the problem is our canvas is not scaling to our resolution. Me dragging the window around, it's a bit like people running different game resolutions, having different size screens and stuff. So I want to change that. Our canvas scaler down here, it says constant pixel size. We actually want scale with screen size. And when you do that, what it needs is a reference resolution, which means, like, it's actually really nice. This is something I would have killed for in my years of making games in GameMaker, is I'm just going to tell you we're working with, I'm going to type in 1280 by 720. You could put in, I suggest a 16 by 9 resolution, like aspect ratio, because that's what most people have. You could do 1080 by 9, wait, I've forgotten resolutions. Anyway, 1280 by 720 is the one I remember. So let's do that. And basically what they're saying is, like, I'm going to design the UI as if it's 1280 pixels wide and 720 pixels tall, and then no matter what the user's resolution, scale it until it fills it. Make that 1280 as big as it needs to be to fill their 1920 by 1080. That's the resolution. I don't know why. I think I got confused with the 1080 was the vertical or horizontal. It's been a while. So yeah, basically, we'll make it as if it's 1280 by 720, and then the end result will be scaled to whatever the player is actually using. And that's great, because you can do things like, let's make a button 500 pixels wide, and you just say 500 pixels, and you know that means roughly half the size of the screen, a bit less than half the size of the width of the screen. And if someone's running a totally wacky resolution you've never even heard of, it will still be about half the size of the screen. You don't have to write in percentages. That's what I had to do in GameMaker a lot. It was sort of, it's going to be 65% of the screen, and I don't know, that was messier to me. So I guess let's just prove that worked. It's always nice to see the results of a fix. And while you're dragging, it doesn't work, but once you release, it fixes itself, right? It's always a bit wider than that central column. So that's cool. Drag it back. And there's going to be a button. So I think I'll make it black. Yeah, so when you create an image, it has no sprite, but what Unity does is just fill it with solid color. And that's actually quite useful for UI stuff, because it's totally legit to have a blank solid color for UI elements. Saves you making like a pointless dummy sprite that does nothing. And I want text on it, obviously. So I'm going to right click. So the image is on the canvas, and I want the text to be inside the image. It's going to be a child of the image, because what I want is, if we shrink this button, I want the text to shrink too. I want basically the text to do whatever it has to do to stay within the button. So we go to create game object and UI and text mesh pro. We're going to do this. You can just do normal text, but text mesh pro is what you probably want to learn, because it's a much better way of doing text in general. We probably won't use any of its advanced features, but you should learn this way, because you will want them eventually for fancier projects. So when you do this, it's going to say it needs to import some essentials. So we're going to click that button, and it'll take a little while. What text mesh pro actually is the normal way of doing text in games is it uses a font, and then it renders that. Take a little while. UI is if it's 1280 pixels, what you do is the vertical pixels, and it's going to be dragging, it doesn't work, but once you for UI elements, it's going to be a child of the image. To do this, you can just do normal text, but text mesh pro is what you probably want to learn, because it's a much better way of doing text in general.
I guess this is because he's on an old version.
Features, but you should learn this way, because you will want them eventually for fancier projects.
Fine
so when you do this, it's going to say it needs to import some essentials. So we're going to click that button, and it'll take a little while. What text mesh pro actually is the normal way of doing text in games is it uses a font, and then it renders that to pixels. And then if you zoom in, if you make the text really huge, or
mine's
really close to the text, you'll see the pixels. They go kind of blurry and pixely and bad. Text Mesh Pro looks at the font and figures out how to sort of do it in vector graphics, so that no matter how close you go to the text, it'll always be perfectly crisp, and that's really cool. We just close this now. We don't need these examples and extras. I'm trying to close it. It's not happening. Okay. All right. We've got some not very attractive text.
Mine's
now,
less attractive.
Let's do what I said we'd do. Well, first of all, it's going to be, I think, new game will be the name of the button. And how big do I want it? I'm actually not, it's 36 right now. I'm actually going to click this auto size thing and say, that just says, make it as big as it can be without, going over the size of the container. What is the size of the container? Well, it's 200 by 50, which is a bit less than the container button. I think that's just something Unity's picked arbitrarily. That's not great, because if I resize my button, it's not going to resize the text. The button's just going to disappear behind it. So what we want is for our text to be as big as possible within the button. And that auto size thing means it will be as big as possible within these bounds, but these bounds are just things I have to type in, or I would have to type in if I wanted to change them. I don't want that. I want this to expand to fill. So we click here, and then this expand to fill thing in the bottom right, we want to click that, but read up top here, Shift also sets pivot, Alt also sets position. I don't know if I can give you a concise summary of what those things are and why it matters, but I find it good practice to always set those. So I hold down Alt and hold down Shift, and then I click this. You can kind of see you're doing the right thing, because when you do this, it looks more like what we want, right? That's just the arrows filling the whole thing, no other stuff. Okay, so now it's gone super big. We will, down here in the Text Mesh Pro settings, we can make it centered that way, and then you can also make it centered vertically. I recently discovered it's better to click this button. This is called Midline, and it's basically centering vertically, but it pays more attention to how much space the font actually fills. Different fonts have different alignments, and that can mess you up if you don't do that. But it's way too big, isn't it? So I'm just going to, now that this thing is set to fill, rather than specifying a width and a height here, you just specify margins. So I'm going to give it a margin of 20 on every side. I'm just hitting tab and typing in 20 everywhere. That's not bad. Maybe we'll give it 15 top and bottom. Yeah, that looks nice. Well, nice. For placeholder UI, it's not bad.
I'm not sure I agree.
What should we do next? I think let's actually make the button work. Why not? So I'm going to, the actual script that does the button's job, we're going to attach it to the image, not the text, because the image fills the whole thing. That looks nice. And the height here, you just do how much space the font actually fills. Different fonts have different alignments, and that can mess you up if you don't do that. But it's way too big, isn't it? So I'm just going to, now that this thing is set to fill, rather than specifying a width and a height here, you just specify margins. So I'm going to give it a margin of 20 on every side. I'm just hitting tab and typing in 20 everywhere. That's not bad. Maybe we'll do it 15.
Excuse me, where? Left top, right bottom. Yeah, I don't have that. Oh, he did the gizmo. He did the gizmo. Right.
Yeah, that looks nice. Well, nice. for placeholder UI, it's not bad. And what should we do next? I think let's actually make the button work. Why not? So I'm going to, the actual script that does the button's job, we're going to attach it to the image, not the text, because the image fills the whole thing. Like this size here, this 297 and 56, that is how big the button is, and the code we're going to write is going to want to know, is the cursor within our shape?
nice round
And when it
numbers.
asks for that shape, it's going to want this one. So add component, new script, and I'm going to write the word button. Yeah. We could put a button behavior. I've let that convention lapse a bit. I got a bit bored of typing behavior every time. Conventions are useful until you don't care enough to follow them. That's my policy. Is it still waiting? No. Okay, so there is a really useful little function. I discovered this in researching this episode. I've been doing buttons in Unity for God knows how many years, and it changes all the time what the actual correct way of doing it is, but I found a nice way of doing it. What we're going to want to write somewhere in update is we're going to want to write something like if the mouse is within our rectangle, clicking should do something. And for that, we need a reference to the rectangle. So we do, it doesn't need to be public, it can just be rect transform. I guess, should I just use the word rectangle? There's an argument for why we shouldn't use the word rectangle, but it is the most convenient thing to say. And rect transform is, where am I getting that? Well, if we go back to Unity, that is what the transform is called now. If I click on the player, it's just called transform. But on a UI element, it will be a rect transform, which just means it's a rectangle. It's a 2D thing, not a 3D thing. And that has all these different settings about.
It's okay.
indents and
It's
stuff like
fine.
that.
I'm not
I would guess
completely
if I
an empty
click on
head,
play,
so I have my
that's-
own opinions on
that's
this
choosing
stuff.
how
Don't
to-
worry.
So we want a reference to our rect transform, and how we get it? Well, on start we'll just do rectangle equals get component rect transform. I guess you call this thing rect transform, the variable, but I find that a bit of a pain to type each time. And so then what does this if statement look like? If, good question, rect transform utility dot screen, rectangle contains screen point. That's logical, isn't it? We have a rectangle, we want to know if a screen point means a point in screen space, which is, we will have soon, because we're going to type brackets input dot mouse position. So rect transform utility, it's a hotline that we're calling. We're saying, hey, do you have a way of figuring out, if I give you a rectangle and a position, can you tell me if that position is inside the rectangle? And if we mouse over it, it's going to tell us, actually, we want the rect transform first, and then we want the screen point second. So I should type rectangle, comma, input, mouse position. And is that enough close brackets? Yes, it is. Okay. So now that can be its own comment within this. We've written that line of code. For now, because I just want to test if this button is working before we get into the actual functionality, let's also get a reference to our image. So that's, nope, excuse me. Oh yeah, when I type image,
He
it's
may
it's
not know
auto-completing.
about
The
it.
thing I want really is called image. I am right. They're wrong, I'm right. But it's not popping up. I am going to...
I wouldn't worry
Can I
about
just
it
hit
too
Alt-Enter
much.
right now? Yeah,
It's
that
not
works.
like this is
hit Alt-Enter, it comes up with a bunch of
not
possible solutions that pop
useful
up.
in its own
And
way,
one of
and
them
I'm
is
aware of the fact
using
that
Unity
it's
Engine.ui.
not
I'm gonna
the
click that.
necessarily
What that's gonna
the
do,
way
that
to
line up there.
do
You can just write that
UI.
line if you like, if Unity doesn't
Or
do
not
that,
the only
same
way, or
behavior for you.
whatever.
Sorry, if Visual Studio doesn't come up with that same
Don't worry
option,
about it.
you can do it. Basically, image is a concept that doesn't exist in the most bare bones Unity script. It's in this subset of Unity which is called UI for UI stuff, and Alt-Enter lets you get at, ask Unity, look, I know what I'm talking about. Can you go and look? Somewhere in your libraries you'll find a concept of image, and I actually found a bunch of them, didn't it? It matters which one you import there. We definitely want the UI one. It's a UI element called image, and I'm just going to call the variable image as well. And same as with rectangle, we'll just do equals get component image. And then all I want to know is have we successfully moused over it. And so if we've moused over it, then I want image.color to be color.black. And we'll add an else statement, an else section to this if statement, and there we'll say image.color equals color.gray. So if we're not mousing over it, it's gray. If we do mouse over it, it's black. And that way we should be able to tell that this code is working. Obviously, I made the button black, so it looks like it hovered from the start, which isn't.
Yeah, that didn't
And now
make
it's gone gray.
sense there.
And when the cursor goes over it, it goes black. Yay! That's a very useful bit of code to have. So now we can make it do something. And I'm going to do this for this one button. I'm going to write this as I'm just going to hard code how it works, and then we'll change our minds about that in a bit because we want to make lots of buttons and they all do different things. But for now, let's just make this actually start a new game. How do you start a new game in Unity? It's really just so all of the stuff we've been doing is in a scene. Right at the top of the window, you'll see sample scene Unity. We have a folder called scenes in our project folder. If we click that, here's sample scene. This is the one we're looking at. If I double click it, it'll ask me to save, and I will save. You don't have to do this. I'm just showing. It takes us back to wherever you are. And that's basically what we want to do when the player clicks new game, is take them to this scene. This is the first scene of the game. What I don't want to do, well, first of all, we want that color changed, and then we also want to check, has the player clicked? So input get button down, in brackets we do fire1, that's a stupid name for left click, And now this is the clicking should do something part. And what we want to do, there is something called Scene Manager. And again, it's not going to know it off the top of its head. Let me finish typing what I'm typing, and then I'll do Alt and Enter. So yeah, the top thing here is using Unity Engine.scene management. Again, it's sort of its own little reference library. By clicking that, it's added this line at the top. Again, you can type it yourself, but I like just if I know what I'm talking about, I'll write what I'm talking about, and then ask Visual Studio to figure out what it needs to do to make that work. Scene Manager dot load scene, yes, and then so this will load a scene, but the thing. So yeah, the top thing here is using Unity Engine.scene management. Again, it's sort of its own little reference library.
There's probably a way to make
that
that work in VS Code, but I haven't done it.
If I know what I'm talking about,
I'll
write what I'm talking about, and then ask Visual Studio to figure out what it needs to do to make that work. Scene Manager dot load scene, yes, and then so this will load a scene, but the thing we've got to put in brackets is a string. So we could type what's it called, sample scene, but we don't want to do that really because we're bound to rename this. This is a stupid name for the scene. What I really want, rather than having a hard-coded value here, let's have a public slot for it. So if we do public scene asset, let's call it first scene, and then I guess scene asset also needs to import something. The first option here, using Unity editor. I'm going to click that. Yeah. Scene asset is a thing. So yeah, it's just a variable type.
Fuck. All right. Okay.
That can store a reference to this scene. And when I go back to it, we should find on our button. Let's actually name this image object. I'm going to call it button because this really is the object that has the button stuff on it. And yeah, there's this little field for first scene, and I'm just going to.
Okay. Did he? He must have done.
Again, it's sort of its own little scene manager because we're bound to rename this. This is I guess scene asset also needs to import something. The first option here, using Unity editor. I'm going to click that. Yeah. Scene asset is a thing. So yeah, it's just a variable type that can store a reference to this scene. And when I go back to it, we should find. I'm going to click that. Yeah. Scene asset is a thing. So yeah, it's just a variable type that can store a reference to this scene.
He didn't actually do anything with that.
And when I go back to it, we should find on our button. Let's actually name this image object. I'm going to call it button because this really is the object that has the button stuff on it. And yeah, there's this little field for first scene, and I'm just going to. I could drag it from here. I'm actually going to click the little target here because there's only one scene in our whole project, so I can just find that very easily there. So yeah, now our code says when if the mouse is within our rectangle, our button's been hovered, and we clicked, then load. Oh yeah, good job I checked because this is still the old code. Load first scene. It's complaining because it wanted a string and we've given it a scene, so we do first scene.name. So we're going to find what the first scene is, which is the reference we already have, and then we're going to ask it what's its name, and then load the scene by its name. Don't know why you have to pass it a string, but you do, so we will.
What's your problem with this? You will not be able to build your game.
But yeah, that means if we rename the scene now, this will still work, even though it's loading it by string, because each time it asks the scene, hey, what is your name? And so if the name is changed, we're fine. So to test this, first I'm going to actually do stuff. And then if I click new game, yeah, we're back to where we were. Great. So, the next thing
Okay. There we go. I want to keep following along with Tom. So. Listen to this guy trying to follow along with Tom and then doesn't follow along with Tom. Oh no, what? Who turned out the lights? It goes all right, except for that. I don't know what happened there. Here. And I can turn off the lights. Totally intentional. 100% intended.
It's a hard level.
Definitely not a problem. Yeah. If you restart, you don't get to have the lights on the next time. That's all.
They haven't made like a win condition yet?
No. Doesn't that look cool though?
It does. I like the shadow.
My guard is mad at me. He's so angry. They're both mad.
Dance falling.
No, but I mean, this is pretty cool. It's pretty far along. The things that were new tonight that we did were sound effects, screen shake and jolt, death effects where there's lighting and particles, and split that stuff up into a prefab variant so that it could be like shared and different. Like we can have a customized one, so it's not exactly the same. Like they have little particles and little lights, and then the guards have big lights, big particles. So yeah, I mean it's very gamey now. Other than the whole like the lights went out thing.
Good.
Thank you. Well, I mean I'm just following a tutorial. Mr. Tom here. Mr. Tom Rooney. I don't know why his lights didn't go out when I did though. What did I do wrong?
Yes, you're there. I still know you're there.
But yeah, I'm basically about done here. I'll how are you feeling? Better? A bit? Oh, maybe? No. I do not know. Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't know why it's happening, but that could be. Nope. Still still deletes it. Or not deletes it. It's just I mean it's there. And it's on. I think. Yeah. Do anything. It wouldn't do anything. It's on still. What is happening? Was it getting turned down? So on a new scene load, it's at 0.18 and 1. Normally, that's what it is. What? What? It's a good thought, Misty, but I can't think of how that would be. Like, the directional light is just not connected to anything. It's just in the scene. It does kind of look like it's coming from the bottom right. Huh. Also, yeah, what Blockington said. Mm. It was never checked. But I guess I generated light now? Yeah. Thank you. There we go. Yeah, that did the trick. Uh, just jackhair them to death. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So yeah, we'll just keep in mind that that's bad practice. We'll see if he addresses it in the future. But,
menu needs probably is a way to go back to the game. Right, we're in a menu mode. We want to get rid of the menu, right? So I'm going to duplicate this button.
All right, we're gonna just leave that there. But really cool progress tonight. It feels so much more like a game now. You know, it's crazy how just some effects like this can make such a huge difference. But that's what they're for. That's how they work. That's what they do. I know I've been saying it a lot, but I just can't believe how far along we are with this in such a short time, you know? Arguably everything that I've done here with this tutorial so far, if I had a total, like a full unbroken day to just do only this, I probably could have done all of this in one day. And like I said, while I'm definitely going to have to spend a lot of time really getting the the more math focused stuff about the game programming like cemented in my head, the structure of things in Unity, the parent-child stuff, the setting game objects and entities up for reuse and whatever, you know, there's a lot of value that I'm getting out of this tutorial. You know, just a week ago, when I opened up Unity for the first time, I didn't have any idea what any of the interface did at all. Nothing. And now I actually feel quite comfortable in the editor and I understand the flow, you know, like where things go, what they mean, blah, 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 which is a huge difference. It's a massive difference from a week ago. So. I don't think it's something worth going to war over. Obviously, Vert feels strongly about it. We don't know whether Tom's going to address it or not. Address it or not going forward. Maybe he never does. One thing I've mentioned before is that this tutorial is not finished. In fact, we are very much rapidly approaching the end. There's the last one in the series. I don't know when it came out, but we're on number 16 and there's only 23 so far. So it might not even get addressed in the tutorial so far? Might be addressed in the comments. Yeah, there's people saying, actually, not a lot of people are watching these tutorials. Surprised there's only a handful of comments here. But of course, there's somebody pointing out the built-in. You know, it's just what it is. With these things, I think nobody really covers every single thing perfectly. It's just whatever. So don't worry about it too much. Right. So since we're probably not going to be building this into an exe before the tutorial, before we get to the end of the what there is of the tutorial, we can't really know that. But you know, it's whatever. Don't worry about it. I would say, if you feel strongly about it, Vert, it may be worthwhile going to the video, making a comment of your own, and say, hey, I don't know if you know this, but this thing you did with the scene, not good. And let him know. See what he says. Maybe he'll say, oh yeah, I know. I'm going to fix that. Or maybe, you know, maybe you can convince him to replace the video with an updated one with a note like, hey, don't do this. You know, whatever, something like that. Anyway, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you all very much for watching. Even when we catch up to Tom, I would like to continue following along and finish his tutorial. But obviously, I'm not going to wait for his videos. I mean, he started this a year ago, and he's only 23 videos in, so there's definitely some time between them. So once we get to the end of this, then I'll probably switch to a new tutorial and we'll start a new project, and we'll learn more. So I'm definitely going to be in a learning mode for a while yet before I'm going to really try to strike out and do anything on my own. I think I'm way too green still to even begin doing that, to even start like a prototype or anything. I would like to get some more practice under my belt. I would like to also explore different avenues. You know, maybe there will be a tutorial for making like a third-person game where the camera follows over the shoulder, or a first-person game, or maybe some 2D stuff in Unity. I think I'd really like to learn some 2D stuff. I saw there was a tutorial that looked like it was probably pretty good for doing, I think, like an RPG. Oh, actually, that was Godot. But I'm sure there's other ones out there that are very cool. So, oh, it's already been mentioned. I glossed over. Oh, I didn't do the read more. Oh God, and that was 6 months ago, and it wasn't replied to. I know that he reads the comments. Maybe he says something about it in the next video. I don't know. We'll find out. He definitely reads the comments, so he may respond to that at the beginning of the next video. Just based off of what he's done in the past ones. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you tomorrow with the bananas. It sounds like I guess there's some build team stuff happening this weekend. So it sounds like we're going to do some build team prep stuff for bananas. I'm not actually involved in it, but I'm fine with participating. So that's, I think, what we're going to be doing tomorrow night. And then on Saturday, we're going to have Undo Crew. And if I have, gosh, she was just going bonkers, zoomies. If I have time, I will probably stream early and do some more Unity learning before Undo Crew. All right. Shoo, I have a microphone there. Do not zoom me around my microphone. Do not zoom me here. This is a no zoomy zone. All right. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.